Public affairs programming on Look TV is underwritten by the generous support of Pinnell's Restaurant, classic Italian American food since 1922, and Stored Tech, technology solutions for computers, networks, and phone. Stored Tech, your technology, our passion.
1922, Babe Ruth debuts with the Yankees. WGY signs on air. Exterminator wins the Saratoga Cup, and Pinnell's Restaurant opens its doors for the very first time. For 5 generations, Pinnell's has been preparing delicious Italian food, served in a comfortable, home-like setting where everyone is welcomed. 90 years of authentic Italian recipes, 90 years of the freshest ingredients, and 90 years of the finest classic Italian dishes, all made daily by hand. Pinnell's Italian Restaurant, a Saratoga dining tradition since 1922.
Most cybersecurity firms deal only with prevention, the systems that block hackers and viruses. Stored Tech knows the root cause is actually good people doing bad things. So we offer a security training program which includes certifying all participants to show they understand the basics.
Technology solutions for computers, networks, and phones. Stored Tech, your technology, our passion.
The Saratoga City Council meeting, an inside look at the decisions that affect you and our community.
Good evening. Welcome to the September 21st, 2021 City Council meeting. The mayor cannot be here this evening due to a personal issue, so I will be running the meeting this evening. First up is a public hearing. There is one public hearing scheduled to amend Chapter 225, alternate side of the street parking on Beekman Street. Commissioner Dalton.
Thank you. This is a discussion and vote to amend Chapter 225, Article 9, Schedule Subsection 225-94, Schedule 29, alternate side of the street parking. This is to make Beekman Street from Church Street to West Circular Street alternate side of the street parking per request and a petition from the neighbors. So I make a motion to amend Chapter 225, Article 9, Schedules.
Nope. We're just having a public hearing right now.
Jumped into the
So
vote.
if there's anyone who would like to speak on this issue, please feel free to come to the mic and speak. I believe the vote will be later on your agenda.
Yep, you're right.
Yes. Thank you.
Hi, Nora Brennan, Saratoga Springs. I live right off Beekman Street near Church, and this is the first that I've heard about this, and I'm sure there are good reasons to have the alternate side parking, but I can also attest to the fact as somebody who walks down Beekman Street all the time, who occasionally invites people to come to my house to try and park, there is very little parking outside of Beekman Street. So making an alternate side street parking is just going to expand the parking issues that we have on side streets. And we already have public works coming in at 5 a.m. and the police coming to our door knocking to get people to move their cars on our alternate side of the street parking that happened this winter. So I think it shifts where the problem occurs. So I would just ask consideration to think about the broader impacts to making this change. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Darlene McGraw. I don't live in this city anymore, but I did want to speak on behalf of these streets. Some of these streets aren't meant to be two ways and parking on both sides. So I would suggest, yes, alternate side parking, but also think about next time you keep building more streets. When you build more streets, make sure you have sides, because if a fire truck can't get by, maybe that might be you that needs help and can't get it.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to speak on this public hearing this evening? Commissioner, are you closing this public hearing?
Yeah, we can close this. Yep.
Okay. Then we will just wait until 7 o'clock, and the meeting will begin in about 2 minutes. All right, it's 7 o'clock, so we're going to actually call the meeting to order officially with roll call.
Present.
Commissioner Madigan?
Present.
Commissioner Shiraka?
Here.
Commissioner Dalton?
Present.
Here.
Please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. And we will now begin our public comment period. If anyone wishes to address the council on any matter at all whatsoever, please come forward and state your name and the city of where you might reside, or town or village. Thank you.
Hi, it's Molly Dunn, and I live in Saratoga Springs. Daryl Mount was a 21-year-old black boy who was chased into an alley by Saratoga Springs police officers in 2013. In that alley, he sustained injuries that he would later die from. One of the officers on the scene is former Saratoga Springs police officer Aaron Benware. Officer Benware has an arrest record. There are several alleged complaints that have been made about him and his conduct to the Saratoga Springs Police Department. Yet the SSPD has not responded to a FOIL request to release officers' disciplinary records, including Officer Benware's, and it has been nearly a year. What are you hiding? We demand justice for Daryl Mount.
Is there anyone else?
Good evening. My name is Chad Raddock. I live in Saratoga Springs. Council members, thank you for your service to our community. I appreciate it. Having been a former elected official myself, I understand the pressures each and every one of you have making decisions to represent your constituents. My husband and I recently bought a home here in Saratoga, although we've lived here for more than 10 years. In that time, I can recall a few occasions when the actions of law enforcement were questionable. The Daryl Mount incident, the use of militarized police vehicles that resemble tanks towards BLM activists, and now these arrests that happened in the last few weeks. I have come down here to say one thing. I don't want my tax dollars to be used to silence members of the black community. These arrests by our police department were thinly veiled attempts to suppress voices of people who truly have grievances with this city. The Saratoga Springs Police have had every chance to de-escalate these protests, and at every turn have instead chosen to escalate them. They doubled down on their rhetoric and doubled down on their support of systemic racism. I repeat, I do not want this to be the practice of this city, to silence the voices of people of color, period. I also would ask that we get some independent investigation going here, ask the AG and the U.S. Department of Justice to come in and take a look. Thank you.
Thank you. Tony, are you timing? Are you timing? Yes. Thank you. Pardon. I apologize for that.
Guinevere Service of Clifton Park, New York. I have grown up alongside some of the many individuals wrongfully convicted on the 7/14/2021 BLM protests. I've never felt so hurt by my own city. And all of us, this is our place too. I'm a studying EMT, and right now I'm enraged at the thought that I will work next to those same cops who value their abuse of power over the most important thing a city can have: love for their community and all of their members. These two shirts here, they represent the same thing to me. They represent my service, they represent my purpose to my community to seek out help and justice for anyone in harm's way. Whether I'm in a protester outfit or whether I'm in my EMT uniform, I value my neighbors, my morals, and my duties all the same way. This is not a black versus white issue. It is simply a human rights issue. You're either for human rights or you're not. If you're not, quite honestly, I pray your God, if not our law, will condemn the shit out of those that swore to serve and protect and instead chose to harm and divide our community.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Tracy Krosky. I live in Half Moon, New York. I'm an elementary teacher. And one of the things I do with my students is we talk about radical dreaming. We talk about imagining how wonderful our world could be. And tonight I want you all to think about your hopes for this community and if your actions and words and the actions of your police department are bringing us to a community that we want. Do you want to foster a community where the goal is to control people? Do you want a community where your assistant police chief and commissioner of public safety tell the community they're either with the police or against them? This is not a binary world. We are often told that we can support police while holding bad actors responsible. But increasingly in Saratoga, we're seeing there's no space to question police. We're seeing the police do things like deny Black Lives Matter activists access to court, which happened today, and city council meetings. Where is your outrage about the Saratoga police deciding to violate our constitutional rights? Both of my children were in court today. My son came home from college to turn himself in on his warrant. My 20-year-old son, who I watched walk into court shackled my 20-year-old son. My husband and I were both there on July 14th. And so we know that what happened, we saw it, and we know that this is bull. And I'm proud, I gotta tell you, that my husband and I raised children so committed to liberation. We also feel so blessed to know the many people involved in Saratoga Black Lives Matter and stand firmly with Black Lives Matter. They all push us to be a much better version of ourselves. So I just hope that you all stop and think about how you want to make this community better. Because right now, I'm worried that you all are not able to imagine a better community. I'm worried that you're not able to imagine a community that is not under the authoritarian rule of the police and the police union. And like Catone said to the community, are you all for truth and justice, or are you with the Saratoga police?
Thank you for your comments.
My name is Jerome Steele. I'm from Troy, New York, and I am familiar with authoritarian police departments, having lived there. I believe that with the upcoming mediation and the upcoming election, both the Saratoga Black Lives Matter activists and their supporters, as well as the voters generally in Saratoga Springs, need to understand the issues, or the answers to some pretty relevant questions. I believe that they should understand at what point city officials were aware that warrants were issued for arrests for these activists who were protesting and exercising their First Amendment rights nonviolently. And at that point, what evidence did they review? Did they offer any input to perhaps, urge moderation, especially with the upcoming mediation? What message do you think it sends to Black Lives Matter activists and their supporters in the community who are here tonight that when one of their leaders was arrested and they showed up in solidarity, their supporters went out and were arrested on warrants that they had no idea were out there? They were out there nonviolently. We've seen news reports that say that a child was pushed away from his mother. I don't understand how this serves public safety. I think that the city needs to understand what issues are being mediated and between whom. What are the power dynamics? Who is exercising their rights and who is exercising power? And for what? Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Lillian. I'm a resident of Saratoga Springs. And as a senior in Saratoga Springs High School, I am disheartened by this city's militarized response to protests, and I'm ashamed of how this city has so blatantly waited until after the track season to violate the rights of its citizens, so as not to upset the tourists, which it values so dearly. I agree with the NYCLU's assessment of the SSPD. Their racism is blatant. Will this town not address the fact that the NYCLU has simply labeled the SSPD a racist organization? That is a damning title. The demands of the people are clear. Investigate the death of Daryl Mount and maintain accountability within city policing. Discontinue the obvious targeting of Black citizens and activists. You are all complicit in these issues. You will paint rainbow sidewalks and display a rainbow flag outside of this room, but fail to address even the most basic calls for social justice. What about the queer people you brutalized? I was at the July 14th protest, and I have to wonder why I wasn't arrested when so many of the Black activists present were.
Thank you.
Hi, Nora Brennan again. I was going to speak tonight about the desire the City Council and police force seem to have about getting unearned respect. But I had a boss that used to always remind me to bring solutions and not problems, and just decided my time would be better spent getting to the specific questions I'd like to have solved by this City Council and our city leadership. First, why are you not doing an independent investigation of Daryl Mount Jr.'s death? Two, if it's because you don't think it's warranted, would you provide that justification for the 20,000 people who signed a petition asking for an investigation, as well as the community members who have asked time and again at this city council meeting, out on the streets, all over the place? We want that explanation, because the explanations given to this point have been inadequate. There's been an investigation. We don't need one, etc. We need one. Why do you not have any sense of urgency around enacting the recommendations of the Police Reform Task Force? Is it because you don't think the recommendations are warranted? Do you think it's too much work, too much money? Is our police force resisting the idea of improving public safety for everyone in our community? If it's due to constraints on the volunteers who are currently working hard on this effort, would you be willing to make an open call to the community? The mayor mentioned at a previous city council meeting that she was vetting people. I could not find any indication on the city website that there was a request for people to participate in this effort. And I know plenty of people who would be willing to invest time in making this work happen. Do you think that Saratoga has an issue with systemic racism? And if I were to tell you that as a white person who also spoke up out of turn at recent city council meetings while watching Black people get surrounded by cops for doing the same thing and then arresting specific Black people for that very same thing, I struggle to understand how you do not see and do not acknowledge the racism that is happening in front of us. If you paid attention at all to the police, to the task force efforts, you'd know that arrests are disproportionately happening to Black people in our community. Is that a fluke? Do you know that discipline in our school system is also disproportionately happening to Black people? Do you think that's a coincidence? Damn it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kristen Dart, Saratoga Springs. I don't even have words anymore. Twice today, we've limited public access to public proceedings that are designed to be available to the public because public participation is important and critical to our democracy. This is not fun and games for all of us. It was a beautiful evening. We'd all love to be doing something different. We are taking times out of our schedules. We are taking time away from our children, as many of you do too as well. But we're doing it completely volunteer. We didn't choose to have to do this. This work chose us because you all are abdicating your power. You ran for elected office to have power, to make a change and to make a difference. You've made a change for the worse.
Hi, my name is Charlie Samuels. I live at 7 Marion Place in Saratoga Springs, and I'm here to talk about, is this working? Yeah, I guess so. Complete streets. I'm a former volunteer, as many of you know. I gladly served as on the council several years ago, and I emailed all of you about complete street bike lanes recently. Today was a beautiful day, and I would have, if we had more bike lanes and more safety implementation and more awareness about bike riding, it would have been an even better day. My son has gotten into skateboarding. That's alternative transportation. I go with him every time to Eastside Rec. And I'd feel maybe comfortable if he went by himself, if there were bike lanes. This city, being mostly flat, is just perfect for all forms of personal transportation on city streets. We should take advantage of it. The Lake Avenue bike lane is great, but it is almost useless without connecting bike lanes to it. So if we have only a few bike lanes and people don't feel safe biking, it's not going to encourage biking the way we really need it here. Bike lanes alleviate the need for car parking, and we all know in this city how tough parking is and how controversial it is. Multiple studies show that when people go places without cars, they buy more, shop more, and spend more money. The bottom line is this isn't just good for our health, this is good for Saratoga's economy as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm the Reverend Joe Cleveland. I serve as minister of the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Saratoga Springs. We're on North Broadway. When I've told people what's been going on in Saratoga Springs, they've asked, well, that sounds like, what is that, Alabama in the 50s or 60s? The charges against Black Lives Matter activists in the city need to be dropped. The city needs to end its strategy, practice of intimidation and harassment. It's as if there's a flower you want to prosper, and we think that the strategy, the way to get that plant to thrive, is to cut down and poison everything around it. We need a place where everyone can thrive. Did you hear the children crying when their mother was ripped away from them? Those children are traumatized. You need to admit that happened. You need to acknowledge that happened. Did you hear it? There have been black people in this town telling you about their experience. Have you heard them? Do you believe them? What action have you taken to show that? This is a town that, according to the last census, is getting whiter. It's one of only 5 counties in New York State that is getting whiter. Is that the direction should you ask a question about that? Is that the direction you want to have happen? How can Saratoga Springs be a place where black people, people of color, working class people can thrive? What policies and practices are you going to put in place so that black people, people of color, and working people can thrive in our community?
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak at this public comment?
Hi, my name's Bob Turner. Thank you for letting me come and speak. I currently have my class of 16 first-year students, Skidmore students, in my Real Democracy class for the last 5 election cycles. I brought them here to the city council meeting to come and observe this. Unfortunately, I guess the fire chief has said there's a limit on how many people can be in this room. I think it's unfortunate. The students have always benefited from seeing the issues that you debate. They had read about the UDOs and the bike lanes and many of the social justice issues that people have talked about. And I know they were really looking forward to coming and seeing you guys wrestle with these sort of weighty issues and the future here of Saratoga. I think it's unfortunate that we're limiting how many people can be here in person. I know we have this lovely room on the 3rd floor of the music hall, and I think it's unfortunate that we couldn't be up there. But as you see them going around, please feel free to introduce yourself. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm Nedver Hickenbottom. You all know my kids, Lexus Figueroa, and you know my daughter, Chandler Hickenbottom. Last Tuesday was a disgusting thing that happened, okay? Very disgusting. My son gets arrested for something so silly, supposedly because we heard two different versions of it, of course. No one seemed to know what was going on, but it was because of him having a little tree thing hanging, a little scent thing for the car, which doesn't make sense because anybody could have that in their car. That's why they sell them. Don't sell them in New York State if it's illegal, okay? So with that in mind, you guys go ahead and you take my son. Then you got to do a little transport thing in between with the sheriff's department and the police department, which didn't make any sense. Then you get him over here. We still don't know why he's being arrested. They don't know. No one knows. We get no answers. Again, if you would stop and think and give somebody an answer, things wouldn't blow up the way they do. But this is what you guys want, because you want it to look like there's something wrong with us. But if it was you, on the other hand, and you want to know about your kid, I'm sure you would know. I'm also sure that your kid, after getting picked up on some stupid charges, would not be shackled. It's funny that only the Black Lives Matter people were shackled, and all of them are of color. Why is that? Why does my son go into court shackled like an animal? Do I look like an animal to you? Because he came from me. My daughter came from me. I'm just as human as anybody else in this room. So you guys need to think what you're doing, because you're only making things worse.
Thank you.
Samira Sangari. A week ago today, I was being processed in the basement for a warrant for disorderly conduct from a protest 2 months ago while Mayor Meg Kelly and Robin Dalton walked right past us. 5 minutes after Lex's kids were ripped away from his mother, screaming, because now both of his parents were gone. There's no world where police arrest people 8 weeks after a protest. I have family members who are in law enforcement who said they have never, ever seen police execute warrants for violations and misdemeanors in their careers like this. Activists, including myself and my brother, were brought in to be arraigned in a belt and shackles for violations, which is obviously not protocol and it's clear scare tactic. This is clearly an attempt to intimidate activists. We've been doing community events this whole time, Narcan trainings that you just praised us for. The only time we marched on the streets and exercised our First Amendment right is right after Assistant Chief Catone said he would use his 130 years of his family connections to stop our narrative, which him and Chief Crooks and all of SSPD is actively doing while executing warrants for violations and misdemeanors and keeping his promise. Our narrative being there needs to be an investigation into the death of Daryl Mount, plain and simple. Mediation is supposed to be met with two neutral parties. After myself and multiple other people were arrested, my brother turning himself in this morning, who's 20 and is in college, my friend sat in cells. Our party has been reduced to criminals who have absolutely no record. Saying you were not aware about our arrest is not enough after conveniently signing to do mediation as we were downstairs in the basement. A public or written statement denouncing these racist intimidation tactics SSPD is carrying out and demanding the charges to be dropped would be nice, but you didn't even have anything to say about a former corrections officer who got beat to death on Caroline Street, so I wouldn't be surprised if you said anything now. However, Nightclue, the same people that Chief Crooks told us to contact, said publicly that Saratoga Police Department is acting as a racist organization. It's time to step up and to act like the so-called city officials you claim to be. As an organizer and activist of Saratoga BLM, there will be no mediation until the charges are dropped.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to speak this evening?
Hello, my name
is Matthew Williams. I'm from Burnt Hills. And I think it's really disgusting how you people treat anyone else in the community. You would treat fairly, but you treat people of color and black people like garbage. And it's really disgusting. I see my friends getting treated differently than me walking down the street. And it's so sad to see that they can't feel safe in this community. And no one should have to go through that. And let me just say, my friends, they're like 15, 16 years old, and they have to be treated like that. Children have to be treated like that. They have to go through that. Why should they have to go through that? They shouldn't. It's traumatizing them. And I think that more justice needs to be served because it's your job, and you're not doing it. That's all.
Thank you. So I wanted to keep public comment open until at least 7:30. Is there anyone else who would like to speak officially? Thank you. Please come forward.
Hi, I'm Logan Williams. I'm from Burnt Hills as well. You might know the relation by now. So I feel like all of those presentations before me, they were very powerful, and I only really have 3 words for the board. This is wrong. And that's it.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Darlene McGraw. You guys probably know me well enough, okay? I moved out of this city because of your darn dirty politics. If you guys would all leave, get the hell out of your job, and find a new job somewhere else, that would be even better, okay? Steps to problem solving. Identify the problem. Generate possible solutions. Evaluate alternatives. Decide on a solution. Implement the solution. Evaluate the outcomes. I've tried to work with you guys, especially public safety and public works, on this Potholes Matter campaign. You guys had the police threaten to arrest me, and a deputy commissioner somehow thought he was the cops. First of all, that is not your job. So whatever the hell you're doing, find a new job. And like I said last time, you say, oh, I don't have enough money. Well, get a damn strip club. Let's call it Triple Vision. You know, Triple Crown, Double Vision. Just like this cannabis stuff, Triple Vision.
Thank you. I would like to make sure everyone who wants to speak has an opportunity to speak. Is there anyone here or in the hallway that wants to speak on the record?
Alexis Brown, Saratoga Springs. I just want to know why the Saratoga BLM organizers and supporters were denied entry from court this morning. We were all in the hallway. We walked in to support the organizers who were turning themselves in and appearing before the court, and Officer Davis told us that we could not go inside. We asked why. He gave no reason other than he's doing his job, following orders, and listening to his supervisor. What supervisor? This mysterious supervisor that keeps trying to stop BLM organizers and activists from coming into this building. Why? What is it? Because they let other people in. There's other individuals who were in this. They're in this room right now that eventually were let upstairs. My aunt came after she realized that I wasn't being allowed in. Officer Davis talked to my aunt, but wouldn't talk to her until he told me to get out of the building. So eventually, she came outside to let me know that we would be able to go into the building, but once the organizers had already appeared in court, which is the entire reason why we were here. So again, between this, the black organizers who were pulled over after the July 14th protest, including myself and my boyfriend, the dozens of black organizers who were arrested, even though they were in a crowd. I don't understand how the majority of the rest were black, but the crowd was about 70 to 80% white. How does that make any sense? It's disgusting. You are shameful. Resign and suspend your campaign for mayor. You're disgusting.
Okay, I know thank you. I know we had a few people walk in from outside. Was there anyone else here that wanted to speak to the council on the record? Okay. All right, with that, we are going to end public comment, and we are going to move on to a presentation. But before that, I want you all to know that I do appreciate your comments. One thing I did hear, I got a bit of an update on mediation and also got a text from Lexus while we were sitting here, mediation with a few question marks. There is an item on my agenda this evening to discuss mediation further, but I do think I heard what it's going to take in order for mediation to move forward. So Samira, I believe you indicated what it would take. So thank you, and I will be in touch as we progress on this matter. With that, public comment is over unless anyone else from the council has a response.
I just wanted to say I have a call in and requested to find out what happened this morning with court. The initial answer I got was that the court system has not let a gallery come in since COVID has been in place, that the protocols are just that the defendant and the attorneys are in there. I am not. But that was the initial answer I got, but I want to confirm what happened and figure out, so I will get back to you and find out what happened.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. I think that would be helpful to find out what happened today.
No, that's all I have to say.
Okay, we're going to move on. We're going to move on now. Thank you again for your comments this evening. And with that, we are moving on to a presentation on the Unified Development Ordinance. This is under the Mayor's Department. They have a presentation on the agenda. For the UDO, the City Attorney and Deputy Mayor will present with Arista from Camaros, our consultant, who is joining by Zoom.
Thank you, Commissioner. So, as you indicated, with us this evening is Arista from Camaros, and I should also indicate that with me in the audience are city staff members, including Amanda Tucker, who is the staff responsible for the DRC, Anisha Samuels, who's the staff responsible for the Zoning Board of Appeals, and Susan Barden, who's the staff responsible for the Planning Board. We also have Patrick Hogan, who is our building inspector and zoning officer as well. So as we progress through the presentation, if there are any questions, we have all of the experts employed by the city to address those if they come up. So Lisa has been kind enough to prepare some slides for us this evening, and she's indicated in the first slide the items that we are going to discuss this evening, including the ordinance goals, the project overview and review of the process, in other words, where we are and how we got here, the edits to the final draft, specifically discussing what we changed following the 4 workshops that were held last month, the benefits of the UDO, and the next steps as we progress toward ultimately having this matter on for a discussion and vote. So to understand the goals of the UDO, I think we need to understand its relationship with our comprehensive plan and appreciate that the regulations contained within the UDO are the very means by which we as a municipality implement the goals and objectives of the comprehensive plan. In other words, the comprehensive plan lays out the city's vision for the future, and the UDO is a tool we use to implement that plan. Anyone who is familiar with our comprehensive plan knows that the predominant theme or vision for our community is the city and the country. And that is articulated in the comprehensive plan as reflecting, quote, a city with an intensively developed urban core and an economically vibrant central business district with well-defined urban edges and an outlining area of rural character comprised of agriculture, open lands, natural and diverse environmental resources, and low-density development. The overriding philosophy intended to guide the future development of our city and the country is sustainability. And we have sought to incorporate this into our land use regulations. In fact, the city received a grant from NYSERDA, the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority, to develop and implement sustainable growth strategies as part of our effort to both update and unify all land use regulations, including the city's zoning ordinance, subdivision regulations, and standard construction details, and to incorporate components from the city's open space master plan, complete streets policy, and urban community forest master plan, all into a single, coordinated, unified development ordinance, or UDO, and all in accordance with the adopted comprehensive plan. NYSERDA has been monitoring our progress and reviewing our deliverables to ensure that we have sufficiently incorporated components of sustainability into the UDO as required by the grant. I am pleased to report to the Council and the public that NYSERDA has determined that we are in compliance, have met the requirements, and they have signed off on the final draft of the UDO. The other goals of the ordinance, which are derived from the comprehensive plan, if you go back to that last slide, include promoting mixed-use development and broad-use mixture to encourage interaction and diversity, land use and design policies to enhance quality of life, preserving community character and city history, encouraging housing diversity and affordability, protecting environmental resources and open space, and promoting a multimodal community. So by way of project overview, I don't think I need to tell you, but we have been at this for a long time. The UDO is the culmination of a multi-year planning process dating back to 2015, when the City Council adopted the comprehensive plan on June 16th of that year. On September 1st, 2015, just 3 months later, the City Council approved a contract with a consultant to assist in the development of the UDO. The consultant, together with a technical review advisory committee established by our then mayor and consisting of city staff, met for more than 2 years, but was ultimately unable to complete its work. On January 2nd, 2018, the City Council voted to terminate the contract with that consultant, and on August 7th, voted to approve a contract with Camiros to develop the UDO. Just 6 months later, Camiros presented proposed amendments to our zoning map in February 2019 in an effort to align it with our comprehensive plan. Next slide, please. The map amendments were released and an update was provided to the City Council and the public comment period was open at that time. In March of 2019, there was an update provided to the City Council, and in May of 2019, Camiros presented the technical report and provided a presentation of that report to the City Council and then provided it to the public during 2 public workshops. Public comment on the technical report was open at that time. On June 2019, public comment closed for the technical report, and in July, an update was provided to the City Council. In December 2019, public comment closed for the zoning map amendments. The council held 2 public hearings, conducted a seeker environmental review, ultimately resulting in a negative declaration, and then adopted the 18 zoning map changes. The following month, in January of 2020, draft 1 of the UDO was released to the public. Camiros provided presentations to the City Council and then provided 3 public presentations as well, and public comment was open at that time. In February of 2020, 2 City Council updates were provided and 4 public workshops were arranged by city staff, providing an opportunity for the community to come in, ask questions, and provide comments regarding the UDO. Public comment was closed at that time following 7 weeks of allowance. In September of 2020, and I should indicate, in February, it was indicated to the council and the public that we had anticipated having draft 2 available by what we thought would be around April. However, as we all recall, COVID-19 threw a significant wrench in all of those plans. So nonetheless, in September of 2020, draft 2 was released. It indicated and included red line changes that were made from draft 1. Updates were provided by Camiros to the City Council and the public. Updates were also provided to the Planning Board and the Design Review Commission, and public updates were provided during 3 separate occasions by Camiros. In October and November of 2020, 5 separate Q&A workshops were again conducted by city staff, allowing the public an opportunity to come in, ask questions regarding the document. In December of 2020, public comment was closed for draft number 2. And in January of 2021, an update was provided again to the City Council. In April of this year, specifically on April 19th, draft 3 of the document was released to the public, and a presentation was provided to City Council, the Planning Board, and the Design Review Commission, and again followed by public presentations by Camiros, allowing for a question and answer opportunity. Public comment on draft 3 was open at that time. On May 4th of this year, by way of a discussion and vote, the council determined that the final draft of the UDO had merit for review and referred that matter to the County Planning Board, the City Planning Board, and the Design Review Commission for formal advisory opinions. In June of this year, we received the advisory opinion from the county. That was a favorable advisory opinion. In July of this year, we received the advisory opinion from the Design Review Commission. That was also a favorable advisory opinion. And in August, last month, we received the advisory opinion from the City Planning Board, which also ultimately provided a favorable advisory opinion indicating that the UDO was consistent with the comprehensive plan and not contrary to the general purpose and intent of the zoning ordinance, with the exception of 4 articulated inconsistencies. You'll recall that we held 4 City Council workshops to address the Planning Board advisory opinion and specifically the inconsistencies identified by them. The review, as indicated on this slide, was relatively exhaustive. As I indicated earlier, including NYSERDA, the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority, SHPO, the State Historic Preservation Office, the City Planning Board, the Design Review Commission, the Zoning Board of Appeals, the County Planning Board, multiple city departments, all council members, Sustainable Saratoga, Saratoga Springs Preservation Foundation, Open Space Advisory Committee, Complete Streets Advisory Committee, Saratoga County Chamber of Commerce, Saratoga Springs Arts District, Biketoga, and multiple neighborhood groups and individual residents. All told, we received 1,200 comments through the various iterations of the document. And I can indicate that as we progress from draft 1 to draft 2 and ultimately to draft 3, hundreds of changes were made with each draft based on the input we received. Public participation has been an integral part in developing the UDO. Since the release of Draft 1, we've seen a number of changes that were directly based on public input, and you might recall some of those changes, including the restoration of dimensional requirements for the UR districts. At that time, the UR3 was specifically called out. We removed, for example, RV parks as an allowable use. We eliminated what was referred to as pocket neighborhoods or cottage courts. We modified the height bonus from what was then a contemplated 96 feet and revised the definition for neighborhood commercial establishments. So with respect to the 4 workshops that were conducted last month and based largely on the 4 areas of inconsistency identified by the City Planning Board, as well as some other recommendations that were contained in their report and the other reports we received from the county, DRC, and others, we addressed a number of areas that I'm just going to summarize now for the benefit of the council and the public. One of those related to the GCR, or Gateway Commercial Rural Zoning District, in the area of South Broadway. In the current zoning ordinance, that area is identified as TRB, or tourist-related business. That changes to GCR in the UDO. But the depth of that zoning district is somewhere in the proximity of 250 to 300 feet. Based on the report we got specifically from the County Planning Board and the discussion we had at the workshop, it was discussed that we would enlarge that zoning district to approximately 600 feet, although it's not an even line. It depends in part on the parcel boundaries. That 600 feet is depicted on the map that Lisa has up, and it's the light green area abutting both sides of South Broadway or Route 9. And by ultimately extending that GCR zoning district from what was 250 to 300 feet to now approximately 600 feet actually results in a reduction of split parcels from 16 to 7, or a reduction of 9 in totals. And as you'll recall, split parcels are where multiple zoning districts dissect a single parcel of land. We also took a look at providing a residential density limit in the GCR, and this was something that our city planning board called out as one of the particular areas of inconsistency. And that is, they identified that we allow for residential uses in the GCR, but unlike the other zoning districts, we do not call out any residential density limitations. So after some discussion with the city council and back and forth on proposed ideas, we ultimately landed on a density limitation of 1 dwelling per 15,000 square feet. And this can be had either on residential units contained within the second floor of a commercial building or above, or as a principal structure at the ground floor level. If it's a principal structure, that has to be located behind the primary commercial building. In addition to these, we took a look at the GCR zoning district that is in the area identified on the comprehensive plan future land use map as SP, or specialty park. And this is the area on a little bit more of a northern portion of South Broadway, near, for example, Saratoga Honda, and in that vicinity. This is the area of the GCR that is in close proximity and pretty much surrounded by parkland, and specifically the state park. So the development standards that we discussed at the workshop pay respect and careful attention to this area's proximity to the state parkland, and we incorporated, based on the suggestions from the city planning board and others, and Sustainable had raised this issue as well, improving the design standards. And we incorporated a 60-foot setback, pedestrian circulation, and we reintroduced the diagram that we currently have in our zoning ordinance now that Lisa has up on the screen that articulates what a campus-like setting is, which is what's envisioned in that area. I will indicate that the diagram is not an exact match of what's in our current zoning ordinance because it's relatively old, what we have. It contemplates the same idea, just with an updated diagram. Another area that was looked at during the workshops last month revolved around the Maple Dell and Marion Avenue area. And there we took a look at 2 parcels that were specifically called out by the city planning board as being inconsistent, and to address those, and then other areas that were called out by residents of the area and others. So on the screen that Lisa has up, you can see on the left part of that map, and where the arrow is pointing, there is a parcel that in our current zoning ordinance is included in the TRB district. As I indicated earlier, the TRB has been transitioned to GCU or GCR. And in the UDO, it was included to be GCU as well. However, that particular parcel is a residential parcel. And we believe, dating back to the original change when it was TRB, that it was done in error. So we indicated that that should be reverted to UR2. Council indicated a consensus on that issue, and so we have incorporated that in this final draft. On the right part of the slide, you'll see where the 2 arrows point to the darker green area identified as RR. In, again, our current ordinance, that's identified as UR2. We had transitioned that change into the UDO to maintain the UR2. However, when you look at the future land use designation in the comprehensive plan, it is identified as an area referred to as CDD, or Conservation Development District. And areas identified as CDD should be and are in all other areas of our zoning identified as RR, or rural residential. This was also one of the 4 areas called out by the City Planning Board as being inconsistent, and we've appropriately changed it to now reflect RR, or rural residential. Conservation analysis. This was the 4th of the 4 areas called out by the City Planning Board where they opined it was inconsistent with the comprehensive plan. But that inconsistency is currently contained in our existing zoning ordinance. And by that, I mean conservation analysis is currently only required in areas for which there is an application for a subdivision. However, to align with the comprehensive plan, based on the recommendations of the City Planning Board and staff as well, we have made, with, we believe, council consensus, changes to require a conservation analysis in the RR and SR zoning districts, not just for subdivisions, but now will be for special use applications and site plan. We've also provided a number of revised definitions for uses in the RR, and Patrick laid those out during the workshops, but they relate specifically to country club, greenhouse nursery, marina, and microproduction of alcohol. And the revisions to those definitions were to tighten them in a manner so that the intensity of those uses cannot be something that would be viewed as running afoul of that which would be otherwise appropriate in the RR zoning district. We have removed particular uses in the RR district, including campground and community center, and based on comments, I believe, raised by either Commissioner Frank or Commissioner Madigan, and I apologize for not recalling, but we have restored the process for PUD applications. We did, in the UDO, propose that applications be submitted first to the Planning Board. The thought originally behind that was to actually incorporate efficiencies, but after the discussions that we had with you, I think we all came to an agreement that council should be the receiver of the initial application, make the initial determination as to whether there is merit for review, and if so, then send it to the Planning Board for formal advisory opinions. There is language in there regarding a pre-application consultation, but that's just to planning staff and not the Planning Board. So I want to just touch a bit on some of the benefits included in the UDO. I already talked about the implementation of sustainability components, the review of those sustainability components by NYSERDA and their determination that we have met those sustainability components. But to address those a little bit more narrowly and specifically, we've incorporated things relating to water courses and increased protections. And that specifically includes increasing the buffer from 50 feet to 100 feet and adding more protected streams on our protection overlay. We've increased protections for federal wetlands, new permit requirements for buffers, and newly established buffers for federal wetlands established to be at 50 feet. New EV-ready infrastructure and bicycle parking requirements required now for development at a percentage of the parking. Sustainable accessory structures, EV charging stations, solar panels, and wind turbines. Renewable energy sites, standards defined, and new uses now allowed, including those relating to large-scale wind and solar. Conservation subdivision regulations, continued strong protections, including steep slopes and significant trees. Height bonuses tied to green practices, and the conservation design, as we discussed just a moment ago, now required in the RR and SR for applications for site plan and special use. Benefits relative to development standards include steep slope preservation, site plan review. Under our current zoning ordinance, only steep slopes greater than 25% are protected, and only in a conservation subdivision. In the UDO, we proposed the threshold be lowered to now include slopes greater than 15%, and steep slopes would be regulated beyond subdivision and are subject to Planning Board review. We've proposed changes regarding accessory structure standards, and we've strengthened them, including a limitation for the maximum height, which currently in the zoning ordinance doesn't exist. Permitted encroachments have been defined, and those relate to things like eaves and overhangs, etc. Off-street parking ratios have been updated. Landscape, trees and on-site tree requirements, tree preservation. Ground floor elevation regulations for new residential have also been incorporated. Public improvements. Requirements have been broadened for open space preservation and recreation land, including more provisions for passive use in addition to active use. Right-of-way standards have been integrated with complete streets plan guidelines. References have been included for stormwater management standards and infrastructure improvements, and provisions for safe bike lanes and multi-use paths that encourage transportation alternatives. Benefits relative to use definitions and standards, stronger definitions resulting in reduced interpretation. I may have mentioned at one of the prior updates that we had, but in our current zoning ordinance, we define, I believe, just better than 200 definitions. We include just better than 200 definitions. In the UDO, we include just under 400 definitions. So we have dramatically increased the number of definitions, which are intended and should result in greater clarity, less ambiguity, and a reduction in required interpretations. Detailed standards, these increase predictability and are contained in Article 8 of the UDO, and the use matrix format. Permissions are easy to identify. This is contained in Table 8A, and this allows users to either identify a zoning district and then look down as to what uses would or would not be allowable, or to find a use and then look across to find what zoning district that use would be permitted. So those are the benefits that we believe the UDO contains, as confirmed by all of the reviewing agencies that have looked at this thus far. But by way of next steps, September 21st, today, the UDO has released. It's available right now on the city website. We encourage, as always, everyone to take a look at that document. Later on what is the mayor's agenda this evening, there is an item to set a public hearing. That public hearing will be opened on October 5th and carried through to October 19th. And it is anticipated that on November 16th, we will have up for a discussion and vote the seeker environmental review. And depending on the outcome of that particular item, have the UDO itself up for a discussion and vote. And then, there's a period of implementation, and that relates to the effective date. So you will see that in the UDO, we are proposing April 4th, 2022 as the effective date of the UDO, assuming that council votes on it on the anticipated November 16th date. That is to allow, quite frankly, Tony Izzo and myself to go through various code provisions to make necessary changes to the city code to now align with what will be the UDO, to adjust internal procedures and to revise and or create application forms relative to some of the changes that we have contemplated. I know that was a lot, relatively long-winded, I'm sure, but if there are any questions, I'm happy to address those.
I don't have any questions. I don't know if anyone on the council does.
I had one quick question as to where we stood with the Mapledale PUD. I personally have reviewed the planning board opinion. I've met with the neighbors, and I don't feel that it meets the criteria for a PUD. And I just think that the neighbors, it's been, a big topic of conversation, and they deserve to have some kind of conclusion reached by the council.
Okay, but just to be clear, that the application for a PUD has nothing to do with.
They both came up in the same conversation, or they seemed to at least when we were talking about the Mapledale GCU.
Yep. So that PUD application right now is before you under the standards of the current zoning ordinance.
Yeah.
Because we haven't adopted the UDO and because of the time at which the application came in. But notwithstanding, the application for a PUD under the current ordinance or the UDO would still be allowed. Whether you believe it's appropriate or not appropriate is still up to you as council, notwithstanding the provisions of the UDO or the current zoning ordinance.
It's already a PUD, isn't it?
Yes.
So they're looking for an amendment to the PUD.
Are we talking about the one in Marion Ave?
Yeah.
That's not currently a PUD.
Mapledale.
It's not.
Mapledale's not a PUD?
No.
Okay. Because that's what they said at the meeting.
It's not.
Yeah, they're
who's
looking
speaking
to
that
create
it's not? Who
a
keeps
PUD.
yelling that it's not?
Vincent.
Okay.
Okay. All right, because when they came to the mic with their attorney, they said they were looking to amend the current PUD.
They definitely
They've
said
said
that.
it numerous
No,
times.
if they did, that was
Maybe it was just they were revising the version that they were showing us, but
All right, well, that question was asked, and their attorney and the gentleman from Stewart's both said that it currently is a PUD.
Yes,
We're
they
just
did.
looking to amend it, and they said it numerous times. So I don't know if it is or isn't, but I'm just saying that.
Well, it's not. And I mean, the application, I'm sure, makes reference to an application for a PUD versus amending an existing PUD, because they would have to identify the PUD they're seeking to amend. And insofar as we don't have one there, I don't know what they could have possibly identified.
Yeah, similar to like the one on Weibel.
Yep.
That's
exists.
a PUD, and they were looking to expand that PUD.
Yes, that's an amendment.
Right. Okay. Because but no matter what happens, when this goes through or doesn't go through, they still have the ability to do a PUD because it's not RR.
It's not in the RR.
No.
Right?
The prohibition of PUDs in the RR is something that is called out in our comprehensive plan. That prohibition is carried over from the current zoning ordinance into the UDO. That's not a change.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I have no comment on that application because it's pretty much stalled at this point.
the planning board opinion was so strong and so clear on it. I'm just confused as to why we're giving it so much more consideration.
They've made. We're getting a little bit off topic.
Yes.
But they have made, as I understand it, some proposed changes to that PUD for the council to consider. So clearly the initial application that was made to the planning board did have the advisory opinion that found it not to be consistent with the comprehensive plan. So depending on what those changes are or ultimately will be, that's up for council to or not take action on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Let's see. All right. Okay, we just finished a presentation. So we have no executive sessions this evening, and so we're on to the consent agenda. Are there any changes or additions to the consent agenda? All right. I move that the City Council approve the consent agenda as included with the agenda. This is a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The matter passes. We're going to move on to the Mayor's Department, and first up is an announcement. Independent Advisory Committee, New York State Police Reform and Reinvention Collaborative Plan Report. Jason Golub is here this evening. He's going to give us an update. He's going to speak on this matter. Commissioner Dalton also has an item on her agenda on this topic, and I'd like to just take care of that item if that works for you both. And Kim Galvin, who was supposed to be here this evening, was unable to be here this evening to give us her update. So with that, Jason, I'd be happy to turn this over to you.
Why don't you go first? Thank you.
I will try to be briefer than Vince.
Oh, please. Kidding.
What are you doing there? Okay, so my update is purely on the Civilian Review Board. As I mentioned last time I was here, I promised I would go through some of what one shouldn't do if you're setting up a Civilian Review Board, because I think that's equally important to understand as what you should do. So tonight I have a few examples of areas where cities have gone wrong. I was also able to speak with the chair of the Ithaca Civilian Review Board, and I interviewed her and asked her. She's been on CRB for 10 years, so she has good perspective on what's good, what's bad, and again, it's a city that's comparably sized and demographically similar. So I thought those two things would be worth doing. I think this will likely be the last of these updates that I provide, absent a direction from the council that this is something that we want to collectively pursue. I think there's plenty of evidence that a Civilian Review Board will add value to our community. I think it protects civilians. I think it protects police. I think it adds transparency and accountability, and is another input for the police department and an avenue for the civilians in our community to bring concerns they might have. And so I am happy to work with the council. I'm happy to work with the community on the actual development and implementation. What I don't want to do is keep talking about it. I want us to make some decisions, and I want us to make them together in the best interest of this community. So, next slide, please. So we can skip this. I already talked about the goal. Why do CRBs fail? One of the biggest reasons they fail, which should be unsurprising to anyone, is lack of support from the police and political leaders. When police departments and the unions of the police don't get on board with a CRB and they actively defy it or obstruct it or undermine it, it will always be unsuccessful. And so it's really important, and you know, I can't emphasize this enough, that the union and the police department need to be partners in developing this. They need to be at the table. They need to have their input and their voices heard. And if a CRB is stood up, they need to have input into what's going on. They need to have transparency into the process. They need to have comfort. And I think that goes a long way towards them getting on board. I think, as with many organizations, there's a fear of change. And I think if you looked 7 years ago at how folks felt about body cams, you would see a litany of complaints and concerns and opposition. And 7 years later, I don't think you hear much of that. So I get that change can be difficult, and especially change that in some way is viewed as oversight can be unwanted. But again, I think making sure that they feel like they're part of the process is critical. Lack of appropriate funding. This is a key issue. It's actually a key issue I saw more in large municipalities than in small. You look at a city like Los Angeles that has a CRB that isn't overly successful. It's because the scale of the CRB, the number of cases they get, the resources they need, it's overwhelming. And the budget doesn't match. And so I think you have to be very clear about what you're budgeting for, identify the budgetary needs, not just for 1 year, but for multiple years, so that every year the CRB isn't coming hat in hand to a city council that might be a different set of people. So I think those are two of the bigger, across many CRBs, those were two of the bigger issues with why they failed. I think it's worth noting that they're not failing because of being CRBs. They're not inherently faulty, which I think people sometimes think. They fail for any organization. They fail for very concrete reasons, and these are two of the most often seen. So the takeaways are fairly obvious here. An underfunded CRB will fail. A CRB that lacks political support, that lacks police support, will also likely fail. Next slide, please. CRBs that are not independent from the police department. I've seen CRBs where they're employing former police officers, former police staff, or they're connected to the police in terms of their leadership. That creates an overly deferential CRB and not an independent CRB. And so those CRBs are often failures as well. On the opposite end of the spectrum, CRBs that are staffed with activists who have an axe to grind with police are often failing as well. Because, again, it lacks the independence, and it will lack the credibility with police and politicians if it's viewed as making its determinations in advance and not being impartial. So that goes to the point which every CRB I've looked at and have talked to states that who we put on the board is one of the more critical decisions that we can make if we're going to stand up a CRB. Credibility across the community will depend on who we put on the board. And success or failure will also depend on who we put on the board. So of all the decisions we can make, funding and the board makeup are two of the more critical reasons why our CRB could fail. I often hear and I've seen this on some local posts as well, that people feel that a CRB is a bunch of non-experts, non-law enforcement folks who shouldn't be overseeing law enforcement or decisions by law enforcement. And the best example I can give you in our current system is a jury. A jury for a court case, a criminal case, a civil case, is a bunch of non-expert community members, your average Joes, who are asked to make very important decisions for that community. They don't have any expertise, they don't have any great training, but we trust them to make great decisions for our community. And a CRB is not that different. They need to be trained. They need guidance. They need to be transparent, and they need to work with the community. But just like a jury, there is value in what they can provide to our community. And so I think it's not an exact comparison, but it's a reasonable enough one, that there are parts of our judiciary now where we do entrust everyday citizens to make important decisions that impact our communities. Next slide, please. As I mentioned already, CRBs in large cities seem to be less successful than CRBs in small cities. The reason is they don't have adequate resources. Because they're overwhelmed, their investigations become slow, the outcomes are delayed, and it undermines trust in the community. Large cities have heavy bureaucracy, and often the CRBs are reviewing internal affairs reports rather than conducting their own investigations, and they're slow to get police reports and interviews. So the good news is we don't have any of those problems here. We are a small community, and if you compare us again to Ithaca, the Ithaca CRB averages 10 cases a year. Okay? It is not an overwhelming amount. There's not 100 or 1,000 cases involving the police and citizens. It's 10 cases. And they're easy to review, and they get through them in a thorough and timely manner, and they provide their recommendations to the police department. I would say CRBs that are developed too quickly and without quality leadership and process often fail. That's like anything else in the world, right? So 90% of businesses fail because there's not a thoughtful process with how we get from point A to point B. So for me, that includes getting buy-in from all members of the community, and that includes the police, that includes activists, that includes unions. Every stakeholder should have a say in how we get from where we are today to the day we open the doors of our CRB, and then throughout the process of actually having a CRB. They need to meet the specific standards of our community. The people who participate need to be trained. We need a very clear scope of work. They need resources, and they need leadership. So that's a lot of needs to succeed. And without that, there's a high likelihood of failure. But it's not insurmountable. I think more than anything, we just need to say, this is something we want to do, and then take 6 months to do it correctly before we ever start hearing cases before a CRB. Get everyone who has any input involved in that process, fund it, and then give it a 2-year pilot. And to me, that would be a next logical step from where we are today. Next slide, please. So finally, I did have a conversation with the chair of Ithaca CRB, which I thought was really enlightening, and so I wanted to share it with everyone. So I just did it as a Q&A. Why did Ithaca choose to codify their CRB when it wasn't given subpoena power? This is something we've batted around, whether or not a CRB needs subpoena power, and the Ithaca CRB members are very clear that they don't have subpoena power, and nor do they want it. The reason that Ithaca codified a CRB into their local law was because they didn't want a CRB to become a political issue that would change every time the city council changed or every time the mayor changed. They wanted to give the CRB enough independence so that it couldn't be, the funding couldn't be pulled every 2 years. And so by codifying into the law, they made it much harder to withdraw support by the city. So that was the main reason, and certainly something we would have to consider. But it wasn't It wasn't something that was required or because they gave them subpoena power. The chair didn't think that it was needed in terms of codifying it into law because there was no subpoena power and they only have an advisory role. But as I mentioned, they didn't want the CRB to become a political tool. Who makes appointments to the CRB? The appointments are made by the mayor for 3-year terms, and then renewed if you're doing the job well. Has the CRB always worked in Ithaca? No. It took some time, as any new entity will. When it first began, it was awful due to one individual who refused to cooperate, who was belligerent and nasty to the police, and that individual had to be removed. So, again, the CRB has to be evaluated periodically. The people on the CRB need to be evaluated. And it needs to be trusted by all participants, whether it's the community members, the people bringing their cases, or the police department. Has there been cooperation with the CRB? The chair has been through 3 mayors and has had cooperation from all 3. The mayor attends all their meetings and the exec sessions. I think this was a really critical point that I can't emphasize enough. There was not only transparency in setting up their CRB, but there was transparency throughout the existence of their CRB. The mayor attended their sessions. The head of the police union attended their sessions. So they gained a lot of credibility by having their doors open so people could see their process. So people could poke and ask questions, and people could make sure that this was being done in a quality way. And I think that's something that's important to consider as we move forward, if we move forward. In 10 years, she's had 1 officer who refused to meet with her. Everyone has fully cooperated, including providing body cam footage and police reports. The police trust that the CRB is doing its job to resolve conflict. It's not an us versus them mentality at all, and that's what's made it so successful. And that's another thing that I heard a lot was you will be successful if you create a CRB that is not an us versus them. If you don't, it will likely fail. Next slide, please. So, things not to do according to the Ithaca CRB chair. Don't do subpoena power. It's not necessary. It's a civilian review board. Most of us are not lawyers, and the police are part of the community, including members of the police department. We all live in the same community, and subpoena power sets up an us versus them and is inconsistent with the board providing recommendations. Again, don't do us versus them. CRB requires rational minds at the table. The mayor or the council must select the individuals. They all must go through a background check. No one with a felony can sit on the board. This is about the CRB having broad credibility and trust to do right by the community. When the CRB started, there were problems with the police union. Over time, we developed a relationship of trust. We invited them to listen and attend CRB meetings and hear what is said at any time. This transparency and accountability is critical to a successful CRB. And then the final thing she said, which, again, I think we've discussed here, is do not wing it. When they started their CRB, there was no process for what they looked at or how they looked at it. Eventually, they did write a policy manual, so every existing and new member of the CRB was required to have an onboarding and follow the same process for similar cases. So you never have to question if Jason is looking at a case, he's going to do X, Y, and Z. But if Michelle is looking at a case, she only did A, B, C, and D. And you have to have not only credibility in the outcomes, but credibility in the process. And so creating that manual created credibility in the process that everyone who has a stakeholder could weigh in on. So I think that's another critical step we will have to take, which again means you cannot wing it. Next slide, please. And then finally, these are I think this is the second to last slide. This is the logistics of the current Ithaca CRB. They have an orientation for all new members where they get the manual on how to conduct investigations. They review old reports. The appointment process is through the mayor and the city council. They select CRB members with applicable experience while getting a cross-section of the community. She said there are school teachers, superintendents, preachers, investigators, people who have professional experience, who will be level-headed and open-minded and objective, are generally the folks who are appointed to the CRB. They provide both policy recommendations and specific case recommendations. As I mentioned, they have approximately 10 cases a year. And surprisingly, I was surprised by this, they've had consensus on every single case since they've started, well, since she's been on there for 10 years, which I found incredible. They don't take any cases if either side has attorneys, so they don't take anything that's in active litigation, whether it's civil or criminal. And as I mentioned, they're very comfortable not having subpoena power because they believe it will create a barrier to success and working together in our community. So finally, these are the budget line items for the CRB, and a lot of what we would also need to budget for to stand up a CRB: background checks, training for CRB members, professional investigators, which can be part-time, support from a city clerk, office outside of City Hall, which was identified as a critical need. When people bring a case to a CRB, they need to feel like they're in a safe place, and coming to City Hall or coming to the police department may not be that place. So providing the CRB with separate, independent space where people can have conversations and interviews was identified as critical. And then kind of your obvious support, developing a website. They use burner phones, not their own phones, email, etc. So my guess is to stand this up, it would be about $100,000. As I mentioned with the Ithaca budget, their budget now is $300,000-400,000 a year, but they've obviously been operating for 20 years. So, and to me, it would take 6 months or so to get all the input from all of the stakeholders, put together the process for how this would be stood up before we ever started a CRB. I think the process and getting everyone on board is critical, but I think equally critical is the city council making a determination as to whether this is something they want to do. And I hope that happens relatively soon. So thank you. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. I don't have any questions. We do have 2 more presentations we still need to do. And so, Commissioner Dalton, if you wanted to chime in on your end of the agenda, but if anybody
I just had a quick question for Mr. Gold. Is there, for the because you talked about education a lot, and is there, is that something we do internally and put together, or is there companies out there that do the upfront education? Did you get any of that from speaking to the various communities?
No, I honestly didn't. Okay. There are definitely companies, consulting firms that do that sort of training. I used to be the head of investigations for GE Power, and we would conduct training for anyone who was in the compliance space. So there are lots of professionals who can come in and do a 1 or 2 day training on the process of conducting interviews, the process of looking at evidence. That wouldn't be a heavy or expensive lift to find.
Right. I mean, like I thought the jury was a great example. Like what we have here, like through my department, is a board of assessment review where there's 5 members, but they have to go to the county. They actually have to do training.
Yeah.
They have to take an all-day course, and then they have to do continuing ed every couple of years.
Yeah, I think the same thing would have to be for a CRB.
Super, thank you.
I think that's critical. Yeah. Any other questions?
I thought it was a very good presentation. I think you're providing this council and future council with excellent information on how to go about forming a civilian review board.
Okay. Well, the only other thing I would say is I do recognize budget season is coming up, and so I do hope you consider allocating budget for whether it's a pilot or just
Well, I liked how you outlined that it was an ordinance that at the CAPAS. So it's always easier to allocate funds when something is actually established for that purpose. So I know I've tried to connect with you once or twice, but I am going to work on connecting with you this week. I am a supporter if done well. I think a CRB could work well for both our police and our civilians and our city at large. So I am interested in talking to you more about this. And in terms of allocating funds, it is my plan to, if we don't have something concrete, to at least put sort of an assignment aside for it to be looked at specifically, whether it might be the next council that needs to take it up as an ordinance or through the charter or through referendum.
Yeah, I think it's important that we codify it like
I'm definitely leaning toward codifying, but there could be challenges, right? I mean, we've got people with different opinions on how to do this in this charter. So we'll see how this council, what kind of progress this council can make over the next few months.
Yeah, I think the important thing here is that this is a conversation we've been having for quite some time now. We had it with the collaborative, and the public was able to weigh in for months and months while the collaborative was happening. They came to a consensus. They brought it to the city council. We had public hearings. We came to a consensus. Now Jason has done all this research into CRBs. We know everything we need to know. I think we need to take the next step and agree that we're going to do this. And I think everything that Jason pointed out in terms of what not to do and what to do to succeed, we are capable of doing. And I think that this can be a really positive tool for the city. And I think this is the time. So I just...
Absolutely. If done well and done correctly, it could work all around. So
I just don't want us to get lost in questions.
You know, and I heard Jason pretty clearly. He doesn't want to keep talking about it. It's, you know, I mean... Exactly. Yeah. No, I mean, like yes, but I do think you've provided us with some excellent data points and excellent information on several cities and, you know, their processes and what has worked and what hasn't worked and what makes one successful.
Did you want to weigh in, Commissioner Soroko?
Or did you want to go on with your agenda?
Oh, so most of mine had to do with the other individual items that Kim was going to be here and update us on. So I actually think we should just stay focused on this, and I will pick up with Kim when she's back at the next meeting.
Okay.
And I'll update the council then.
Thank you. I need a 5-minute break, council. Sorry. When we do come back, though, I would like to move my agenda item number 12 up, which is a contingency item that Lindsay Connors will be here to speak to us about. And then I would like to move up a presentation on my agenda for Saratoga. Since it's getting late, I would at least like to get the presentations out of the way, and then we can get on with the other city business that we have, if that works for everybody.
I think that's great.
Okay, thank you. 5 minutes, please. Thanks. We're going to get back on track with the meeting. Thank you for the recess. I'm going to move up my agenda item number 12, which is a discussion and vote. It's a budget transfer from contingency. This transfer from contingency is to the mayor's department for the nonprofit group RISE, Healthy Housing and Support Services, to help cover annual expense challenges due to the loss of county funding and the pandemic economy. The transfer is in the amount of $18,000. The services that RISE provides not only support our most vulnerable populations, but also provide safety and economic benefits to the city, its citizens, visitors, and businesses. Lindsay Connors, our community development planner, is here to speak about RISE and a new program, a successful program that they've rolled out. And you may remember, Council, RISE was here and made a presentation to us on this program, and Lindsay's going to update us a bit on the success of it.
So as you all may remember, Sybil Newell, the executive director over at RISE, came before this council back in early August to provide an update on the success of the new homeless court program. She regrets not being able to attend tonight and sends her thanks to Commissioner Madigan for bringing the item before the council. The data previously presented showed immense success in the program's first 6 months of implementation. 77% of participants appeared at all of their scheduled court dates. 85% had no new contact with police, and 81% successfully avoided the Woodlawn parking garage area. Over the last 3 months, the caseload for the homeless court has nearly doubled, in part due to the increased visibility of the program, but also because the homeless court coordinators from RISE have implemented prevention efforts, engaging street homeless individuals at risk of involvement with law enforcement and helping to redirect their behaviors before the criminal actions actually happen. The program has benefited the city court by decongesting the backlog court docket, eased the burden placed on our police officers, and connected some of the most vulnerable community members with the wraparound services and housing they need to address the underlying issues leading to their recidivism. It's worth noting that this new initiative has earned the praise of our district attorney, the American Bar Association, and the founder of the homeless court model, Steve Binder. I'm currently working with our Continuum of Care partners in Glens Falls to replicate the program at their city court as well. I really can't say enough good things about the homeless court and RISE's implementation. I urge the council to support this budget transfer and close the funding gap on this program, allowing RISE to continue to provide this valuable service to our city. If anybody has any questions about, the program, I'm happy to answer any that I can.
I'm just going to say I had the opportunity to meet with Sybil Newell and Lindsay. It's really an amazing program, and when we talk about sort of police and reinvention, this dovetails nicely with it, because this eases up on the police presence that we've needed to have with our homeless population. And I know I've been here a long time, getting a lot of emails here, there, and everywhere, every spring or by the Woodlawn parking garage. And so this is a transfer to help them cover expenses for this year. I will tell you that I'm looking at also including them as one of the nonprofits in the budget next year, because it has been such a successful program. And thanks should also go to Judge Vero, because she's really been instrumental in also operating this homeless court. And so the numbers do speak for themselves. Really fantastic program. Kudos to everybody involved for pulling this together, and you too, Lindsay, because being the community development program manager here in the city, it's a big job, and you do it well. Thank you. So I can make the motion, and we can always have a discussion at that, unless people have questions.
Yes, yeah, and the homeless court coordinators, they work pretty closely with a lot of the police officers that are at our local hotspots. They know each other well, and they work well together. So I think it's a really good partnership between the police officers and RISE as well as the court.
Yep. All right, so I'll make my motion because this is under a contingency item. I move that the City Council approve the budget transfers from contingency as included with the agenda. Prior to the transfer, the contingency appropriation held $185,651.70. Subsequent to this transfer, there will remain $167,651.70. This is a motion. Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? The matter passes. Thank you, Council, and thank you, Lindsay. With that, I'm going to jump to my item number, I guess it's 2, which is my agenda is once again not numbered quite correctly, so bear with me.
Number 2 is presentation.
But I believe my item number 2 is...
Waiting patiently, item number 2.
What?
You've been waiting patiently.
Biketoga?
Yes.
Biketoga, thank you.
Number 2 is presentation by Biketoga.
Yes, presentation by Biketoga. And we have Ed Linder here to make this presentation, and thank you very much for being here. He is the community outreach advocate for Biketoga, and we're going to have a short presentation followed by a resolution on behalf of the recently formed Safe Cycling Coalition. Ed, thank you again for being here.
Thank you, Commissioner. Great. Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, members of the council, for your time. I am the advocacy chair for Biketoga, and I'm speaking here tonight on behalf of the Saratoga Springs Safe Cycling Coalition. Not sure if I'm moving my own slides.
No, I'll be right there.
I'm fine. I know the council is familiar with Biketoga, but for members of the public, we are a Saratoga Springs nonprofit. We've been around since 2005. We're best known, I think, for running a volunteer bicycle workshop in the basement of St. Peter's Church, where we repair and recycle bikes, get them back into the community. I'm happy to say in 2021, despite the pandemic, that over 250 Saratoga families have adopted Biketoga bikes. We also partner with other local organizations on bike-related programs. Back in June, we combined our monthly slow roll with the Saratoga Pride Ride at Trek Bicycle. 3 weeks ago, we partnered with Nancy Underwood at the Backstretch Employees Service Team. We did a pop-up bike repair station for backstretch workers. In 2 weeks, we are partnering with Sustainable Saratoga and the Saratoga Shredders. And if there's anyone out there who has a 24-inch bike they want to donate, please get it to Sustainable Saratoga's Recycling Day. We will make the necessary repairs, and we will get those bikes over to the shredders, and we'll get more girls on bikes. I'm here today, though, because part of our mission is to advocate for safe recycling, and I am speaking on behalf of a larger coalition. I'm not going to read all
I'm being told that you cannot be heard from home for people who are listening.
That's not usually a problem. The Saratoga Springs Safe Cycling Coalition, I'm not going to read all the names, but it's a broad cross-section of the community, and I think it represents the diversity of interests that people have and why they support bike lanes, and we're going to talk about some of those in just a minute. I wanted to start, though, by acknowledging the work that the city has already done, because really, things have been moving along. In 2012, you passed your Complete Streets policy, and 4 years later, there was a Complete Streets plan. A lot of public input in that, a lot of work went into that, but you came in with specific recommendations for bike infrastructure that could be built in the city. We have been adding and improving traffic signals, sidewalks, and crosswalks. You built the Geyser Road Trail, which opened earlier this year and was a tremendous success, something that the Southwest Saratoga Neighborhood Association has been working on for years, and we're happy to see it up and running. I know there have been a few glitches in getting the downtown connector done, but it sounds like we're ready to go, and we're hoping to see that start next year. And we do have bike lanes on parts of Lake Avenue, Excelsior, and North Broadway. There's more to do. In 2021, the city put out an open space community survey, and one of the questions was an open-ended question in which you just asked people what they would like to see in terms of their vision for Saratoga. And as you can see, a common theme was the desire for safer, accessible bicycle and pedestrian connections. And that's what we're really here to talk to you about tonight, are the connections. Because others have noticed. People for Bikes is a Colorado corporation, a nonprofit that does consulting, engineering, and advocacy around bike infrastructure. And they have a sophisticated piece of GIS software that they use to evaluate cities for bikeability. That's our score up there, 17. As you can see, we have not done well. Among U.S. small cities, we are 260 out of 321 in the 19th percentile. We can and we should do better. And one reason that we should do better is because bicycles and bike lanes mean business. There are a lot of studies that are out there that talk about the economic benefits of bicycling, dozens of them. Charlie Samuels referenced some of those studies that show that cyclists in local communities shop at local stores more often. They're repeat customers. They spend more. But I wanted to talk about just this one study, which is from the North Carolina Outer Banks. And the reason I chose it is because I think, like Saratoga Springs, the Outer Banks has been a tourist destination for more than 100 years. They certainly didn't need bike lanes to entice visitors to come to the Outer Banks. And yet they found in the 1990s, when they spent about $6.7 million on bike infrastructure, the returns were phenomenal. By the early 2000s, 680,000 visitors were coming every year, spending $60 million annually for cycling vacations in the Outer Banks. 53% of those bicycling tourists said that the quality of local cycling infrastructure was why they came and why they would return. 12% said that they extended their vacations, that they stayed 4 days longer because of the quality of bicycling infrastructure. And although we welcome cyclists of every demographic, I think downtown merchants would be happy to hear that on average, cycling tourists are better educated, they have higher incomes, and they have a lot more purchasing power. That's why this group of Saratoga Springs businesses is supporting our Safe Streets plan, and they are partners as part of the coalition. We should be a leader in cycling tourism, and 140 years ago, we were. We're looking at an article from the New York Times, July 1879. It's about a man named Wentworth Rollins who owned bike shops throughout New York City. And in July of that year, he rode his bicycle from New York City to Saratoga Springs. According to other reports, he stayed at the Grand Union Hotel, and he saw all that is to be seen from the back of a bicycle around Saratoga. The premier American cyclist of the 1870s chose to ride his bike to Saratoga Springs. Cyclists should be doing the same thing today. And let me say, right now, cyclists by the thousands are going to Vermont and Western Massachusetts so they can ride in the fall foliage. We're here in a beautiful city that is surrounded by miles and miles and miles of great cycling routes. We have more and better hotels. We have more and better restaurants. We have the same damn leaves. We should be a leader in bicycle tourism. Bike lanes promote health and safety. Again, I could give you a lot of studies on this, but I'd rather just talk about some of our local partners. Dr. James Kelly is a sports medicine specialist with the Saratoga Hospital Medical Group, and he tells you what you already know. Regular cycling protects riders from serious diseases, stroke, heart attack, diabetes. It's low-impact exercise. It decreases stress. But cycling is only a health benefit if it is done safely. The YMCA agrees. The YMCA promotes healthy lifestyles for residents of Saratoga. They've been doing it for years. One way to do that is through biking. But as Scott Clark, the CEO, points out, bike lanes make roads safer for cyclists, but they also reduce crashes. And so I want to talk just a minute about bike safety because that's something that I spoke about with some of you individually. It's kind of shocking, it's surprising to me, but I still hear people say that cyclists belong on the sidewalk and not in the roadway. So just to make it clear, New York state law provides that bicyclists have the legal right to share the road. You can't ride on the Northway, but if it's not a controlled access highway, you have the legal right to be there. Not only that, according to city code, no person shall ride a bicycle upon the sidewalk on any number of city streets. So cyclists have the right and they have the obligation to be out in the roadway. And what we need to do is we need to make it safe for them to do that. I understand that cyclists have a role in this. I've discussed that with some of you. And Bikatoga has partnered with you before. This is the city's website, the public safety website. Bikatoga giving information to motorists and cyclists about their obligations and the rules of the road. And as we say, bicycles are vehicles. They must obey traffic laws. You need to stop at stop signs. You need to obey traffic lights. Some of the members of the council have talked to me about possibly doing some cycling education, some sort of a program next year, and I will tell you that if there's interest in that and funding for that, Bikatoga would love to partner with you again. Bike lanes promote sustainability. City Council is committed to sustainability. Vince had a lot to say about that in the UDL. It's right on our website. Sustainability and resiliency are values embedded in everything we do. Bike lanes can be a big part of sustainable development. And that's why these organizations that value sustainability are all partners on the Saratoga Springs Safe Cycling Coalition. Skidmore College, they have their own bike sharing program, Bike More. 600 student riders each year, 200 in the summer, who use those bikes. Many of them don't have cars, and they use bikes to get downtown. According to Michael Orr, the Dean of Faculty, numerous faculty and staff also commute. What they would like to see are bike lanes that make it safe for the community, the Skidmore community, to come down and interact with us. Saratoga Springs Public Library. It's one of the very first public libraries in New York to be certified sustainable. They've done a lot of things with respect to bike infrastructure. They've increased their bike parking. There's a bike repair station at the library. They participate in Bike to Work Day. They support this because it's part of their sustainability pledge to promote pedestrian safety and the use of non-motorized means of transportation. Finally, last one on sustainability is Sustainable Saratoga, an organization we all know. You have worked with them for years. They have worked on bike infrastructure and green transportation for years. Investing in greener transportation is critical to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. So bike lanes really fit into the city's commitment to sustainability. Finally, bike lanes support families that rely on bikes for transportation. And this one is really important to me. When we talk about bike lanes, we often think about people like me, guys who ride for fun or for exercise. But there are many, many people in this community who ride because that's how they get to work. That's how they bring home groceries. That's how they take care of their family. And so we are very happy to have the support of these organizations that have been working with those communities. I understand from Nancy Underwood at the Backstretch Employee Service Team that we had a backstretch worker on a bicycle who was in an accident just this year. Next slide. Joanne Hume from LifeWorks used to be EOC. They've been here 50 years. We all know their work. She has to say the low-income community is disparately impacted by the lack of safe bike lanes because these people have to ride in good weather or bad. They have to ride, and they need a safe way to do that. So an investment in safe cycling is an investment in all our community members. That's what we're asking you to do. We're asking you tonight to pass the resolution that Commissioner Madigan has put on the agenda to support investing in safe cycling, to look at the list of priority streets of the Complete Streets Advisory Board and work with them to prioritize projects, and to get those projects, the priority street list, completed in the next 3 years. Sooner if possible, but in the next 3 years. We think that you need to make a significant investment in the 2022 capital budget, something north of $300,000, which would make a big start in 2022 to get this project going. As I said, work with the advisory board to prioritize and then build more bike lanes. The 2016 plan says that most of these recommendations can be implemented without a major impact on existing traffic patterns. They can be done within the existing curb-to-curb width. We understand that there will be challenges. That's what engineering is for. That's what you put the money, that's what you have a Complete Streets Advisory Board to guide you on. But if we do this together, we can make Saratoga Springs a bike-friendly city. And so, on behalf of our 20 business and nonprofit partners, we would like to ask you to build on the work that we've done, and let's put more bike lanes on our complete streets. Happy to answer any questions.
That was just excellent. Thank you. Very good presentation. And I know we're going to...
Just like that I spoke quickly.
Yeah. At this point, it doesn't matter. but it was very, very good. And actually exciting. You know, you really touched on just about every potential good issue that there is out there, good reasons to have bike lanes. I had one question for you, though, because in the resolution, you do sort of reference this priority list that came out of the 2016 Complete Streets Plan. And I know we've met and we've discussed that those recommendations may be the right way to start, but there may be other streets and areas within the community that at this point in time, a few years later, could take precedent. So as we pass this resolution, I also want to maybe make the council aware or feel better that we want to work with public safety, traffic, Complete Streets, Saratoga, and come up with some good projects that we really can start connecting our community with good bike lanes.
Thank you for mentioning that, Commissioner, because I know I've discussed this with each of you individually, and I can't stress that enough. We're looking to work with the city. We know there will be challenges and there will be issues in terms of priorities. I can't say how much respect, or I can't say that I can respect more the Complete Streets Advisory Board. Their technical expertise and their devotion to this issue and the time they've spent on it, I really hope that you will work with them and take their direction. But this is a collaborative process. Public safety needs to be involved. Public Works needs to be involved. It makes no sense to stripe a street if Public Works is going to pave it next week. And so we can coordinate these projects in a way that over time will get it done.
And to the funding point, just so the council's comfortable, you know that we've been allocating sort of regularly here and there $100,000 in the capital budget through the comprehensive budget through to the adopted budget. I have checked. There is still $233,000 available to spend on an upcoming good overall Complete Streets project. And of course, the mayor's capital budget that was passed at the last city council meeting includes an additional $100,000. So we're already looking at $333,000, which is, a fair amount of money to start looking at an engineering and plan and scoping out some good bike lanes internally for the city. Just to make it's not like we got to come up with some $400,000 next year. There has been money all along sort of set aside.
It's a good start, and it will give us all a baseline in which to evaluate what to do in the years ahead.
Yep.
So I just want to observe what I've kind of noticed happening here and why we don't have more bike lanes. And there seems to just be a disconnect between people who are passionate about biking and wanting this to happen and then the people who actually have to implement it technically. And there's just no communication. They're not syncing up. And I think it's largely because expectations are not set at the beginning of the process, that we all want bike lanes. However, we have to acknowledge that we have all sorts of regulations, whether it's the width of the street, whether it's a state road, a city road, the engineering component, public safety doesn't have an engineer. I mean, there's a lot of roadblocks. It's not nearly as easy as one would think. You're not just taking a marker and saying, I want to go here to here as the crow flies and having it happen. And so I think there's a little bit of frustration on public safety's end, but we are very committed to doing this. We just want to do it in a way that's productive and not, doesn't become like a political tool. Because what I've seen happen there's little bits of bike lanes happen here and there, and they don't serve any purpose, and so it kind of kicks up that frustration again of spending money, wanting to get something accomplished, but we're still not getting people from point A to point B, and they seem irrelevant, the bike lanes. And we don't want that to continue. We want there to be a bigger overall master plan. We also have been working on the list of projects that has been happening over the last couple of years is actually like incredibly extensive for pedestrian and bike safety. And then they also have projects that are in the works that they haven't started yet, that they would like to start. So we need to put together a master plan of what exists already, what's in the works, so we can look at everything in total and then figure out how we're going to move forward and who it's going to help. But we're very committed, we're very excited, we're glad you're here. The only other thing I wanted to address is that there was some language, I think, in the resolution that mentioned that this could all happen without changing any of the roadways, the striping, the design, the traffic flow, in the width. And I would just encourage us to not necessarily lock ourselves into that language.
Well, that language comes from the 2016 Complete Streets Plan. And I understand that it's not going to apply to every street. But that was a professional plan. You hired outside planners. They worked with the professionals in public safety and public works. So I think it's fair to say that a lot of this can be done within the existing street widths. That's the cooperative process that we need to work through. Look, we know you can't just go out and paint lines on the street. If you could, we wouldn't need $300,000. I could just go to Home Depot and get a 6-inch roller. But that's what engineering and design is all about. What I'm here to say is that, a budget is priorities. It's about your values. And a broad cross-section of this community, 20 major organizations, would like the city council to make this happen.
Yes.
So I'm hopeful that the professionals in public safety and public works will do what the public wants them to do, which is solve the problem and leave stripes on the street.
All here for solutions. That's, I think, what we're all here for. But when you say things like make it happen, that's when I get a little prickly, because we are doing things every single day to make sure that people are safe on the streets.
Sure.
And if we take on another project, we have to give something up. And so it's not just like make it happen. There's, people that have to do the work and machinery and money and all these things. So I just want to make sure, again, we're all aware of the process.
Let me say, I really did try to acknowledge the things that have been done.
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely.
But I also need you to hear that this coalition, which is really quite broad and extraordinary, wants these bike lanes to start being connected. So it's a matter of where you put this in your priorities. You can't get everything done every year. There's always issues in terms of things you thought you could do, but engineering makes it more difficult. But if we move together in good faith and people are really trying to make these bike lanes connect up, you're going to find that you're the Outer Banks. You can't be a destination for bicycle tourism if you're not a bike-friendly city. You can't be.
I quite agree.
Cyclists know these things. They ride on your streets and they see how you value cycling. We have a real opportunity here, and I think 5-10 years down the line, if we got ourselves established in that way, if our people for bikes rating is not 17, there's going to be an economic boom that's in addition to everything else we have. That's what happened in the Outer Banks. It didn't take away from what they had, it added.
I completely agree. I just think that we need to come up with a process for regular communication, like set meetings, and really I would like to empower our traffic department to have some more say in this overall vision, to work with you all so that this relationship continues.
Well, you have a Complete Streets Advisory Board that's appointed by all of you. And again, they are very good. So if there needs to be a process, you should work with them on that process, and they should be working with your professionals.
And, I hate to say the COVID-19 excuse, but we were meeting all together. I was going to the Complete Streets. It was great. We just got thrown off course a little bit. But I'm glad we're revisiting and kind of renewing our commitment to bike lanes and starting fresh and getting it done.
We all want them, so let's get them done.
Let's go.
I agree.
I'm on the total other side of this. I don't think this is even difficult to do because it's being done all over the place, and it's been done for years. And, I hear, there's too much traffic in the city. When my wife was ill and we were in Boston every week, the busiest streets all have bike lanes and have the ability even to drive in the regular lanes. New York City, which I go to constantly, you want to talk about traffic, it's all over. Nantucket, they have like 7 bike shops down. I don't know who's ever been to Nantucket, but if you've been in the town section on the cobble streets, trying to drive cars and bikes, but everybody works together on it. I live on North Broadway, so I would disagree with you that these are not being used, because I see Skidmore kids every day on their bicycles go up there. I see younger kids, I see older adults riding there. The problem with, and everybody's going to die once we put the stuff on Lake Avenue, is going to be the end of the world. That didn't happen. And the reason Lake Avenue is not being used, because it doesn't connect to anything at the end, because, we got to the 5-yard line and just decided we didn't want to go any further with it.
What's prevented this from being successful? Over the last, you've been here for a long time. Why has this not happened to date?
It doesn't because of me, I can tell you that. I remember when Commissioner Matthiessen pushed North Broadway, I was a little nervous about it at first, and he did it sort of as a test run there. And the thing I found out was not just the benefits of people biking, and you want to talk about the pandemic, it allowed people to walk in the bike lanes to keep socially distant. So if somebody was on a sidewalk, a lot of the bike lanes were also being used for walking at the time. But what I found out is from all the neighbors who were a little nervous about it at first, absolutely loved it, because by marking the bike lanes, they felt more comfortable of where they parked. So it was also helped a lot with car traffic,
and property values always go up.
And property values go up dramatically, and if you can do it on Madison Ave in Albany, which is a heck of a lot more traffic than 90% of the streets here, then, and I heard, well, you're going to do it by East Side, it's going to be the end of the world, and you can't get cars in. All they had to do was a little cut around, which they could have done 50 years ago, because it's not none of this stuff is brain surgery. It drives me nuts when I hear how hard this is. This is not hard.
I don't know the answers. Where have you been?
Well, I've been saying the same thing for 16 years, so this is nothing new. So when Ed came to me, he had already spoken to a number of the people. And I don't think I'm saying anything different now, Ed, than I did over the phone with you. I just think, I don't see, and you want to talk about bike shops, in Congress Park, we had one of the biggest bike shops probably in New York State back in the 1800s. There was a huge bike shop.
We had bicycle races here for a good period in the late 1800s and the early 1900s.
And even outside of Saratoga, going up 9N is, a lot of people who train, if they're not going up to Lake Placid, up the hills there, they're training on 9N. I think it's, I'm very happy that Commissioner Madigan brought this forward, and I know it needs everything, everything needs funding at the end of the day. But
and ongoing maintenance funding.
We know these things.
I mean,
I just want to make sure the public knows.
I'll wrap it up, but let's listen to Commissioner Frank right now.
Well, I just wanted to say it's like riding a bike.
And it does take resources and funding, and so we got to make sure it's there.
Yeah, but there's a phrase that, you don't forget. It's like riding a bike, because everybody can ride a bike pretty much. So to me, it's just, I'm happy you brought this forward. I won't be here much longer, but at least to get the ball rolling, and I think everybody's pretty much on board. But I don't think it's that difficult at the end of the day.
Well, I think you're right.
I mean, with professionals, involved in getting you guys, because we have been getting presentations since you've been here, right, Commissioner?
Oh yeah.
Of how we need this, and this has been like the top priority that we voted on back 6-7 years ago.
You're adding bike parking regulations to the UDO, which is a great thing.
Yeah.
You need to connect up bike lanes so that these new developments will be able to take advantage of that.
I mean, I have the bus across the street from me.
I think having access to engineering services will be a huge help. We will have money for that now.
I just think in the city it's always been, we can't do it, it's against the law, we can't do it, it's too dangerous, we can't do it. That's all I've ever heard. And I'm just trying, when I hear that, and then I look at the results, they don't seem to correlate with that, what I've always heard. So, I just think it's a great idea.
Yeah, and Commissioner Dalton, to your point, I think you have a very small traffic safety department. Yeah. And I see how they struggle just in the summertime with needing, additional help just to do the striping that they have to do. This is why I bring up these funds, and I bring them up regularly when somebody comes forward. We were year in and year out putting $100,000, just like a placeholder, and what we need to do is start to coordinate and prioritize some projects that can happen, and the money and the resources need to be there for the department to make it happen. And so to even be able to sit here right now and say, there's $333,000, that's a fair amount of money. Yeah. You can get an engineer with that. You can look at a few streets. You can get, and we need to also now look at, your traffic department too, and what it's going to take, and the equipment. And some of this equipment is expensive, but let's not be penny wise and pound foolish. Once we have the equipment, and maybe we can lay the bicycle lanes down like an epoxy machine, and I know that that's not an inexpensive piece of equipment, but that helps ease up on the labor and even on the maintenance and the repair. So these are all the things that we need to put together in this plan. As we know, most of us, myself included, Commissioner Frank, the mayor, we will not be here next year. But this is a good way. We see this big coalition coming forward who wants to help, who wants to know how much money there is set aside, and also wants to make sure your department has the resources it needs to start making a good plan happen.
Absolutely. I'm all in.
So we're just on the presentation part. So if there aren't any other questions or any issues that somebody wants to discuss, I'll move on to.
Yeah, I just want to make a comment.
Sure.
It's a good presentation, Ed. And I know we talked, and the money will help with a consultant. And I'm all for plan the work the plan. I think that's what we're talking about here. And there's a lot of new streets in the city. There's a lot of different. The city's full of places to go, and it's a city of history, and I think, like you said, I think it will help tourism. It will help, bring people into the city, and because I do see, I see a lot of people on bicycles and riding throughout the city, whatever, and I think at this point it makes sense. So obviously, I'm going to support it.
Appreciate that. We need to connect the lanes, and then we're going to see the benefits.
Yeah. And the engineering piece will help us work with the plan. So when it comes time to pave up a particular road or do any work on a particular road, we'll know that that's a piece that is going to be designated as a bike lane, a connector, or whatever. So, it's helpful to us because it's a roadmap.
Communication is key. I think the communication between all the departments and complete streets is really the secret sauce here.
Don't we love that Biketoga has their own advocacy chair, basically, right now?
I'm just here speaking on behalf of a larger group that wants this done, and I have to tell you, my job was really easy, and it shocked me, frankly. If it was up to me, I'd give you a list of streets that I ride and tell you that you should put a bike lane on them. But as I went to these organizations, they're all really all in. There's a lot of community support. So I hope we will find a way to get through the difficulties for each of the departments. Because in the end, however we get there, we need to start putting stripes on the road.
I agree, and Commissioner Frank's right. We all leave this city on a regular basis. I don't think I've been to a city that doesn't have bike lanes. Even towns. Everybody's got busy cities.
Stillwater a month ago.
Big busy
Stillwater,
cities. New York, Boston.
Glens Falls.
I think the difficulty is it's a concept, not a plan. Once we get the consultant on board and have a complete design, I think then we can move forward with
Let's
with the
do
plan.
it. And if anybody wants to go for a ride.
As long as
slow rolls are once a month.
level.
Germany, Berlin, bike lanes everywhere, Amsterdam, everywhere, So we're going to get there. We're going to get there. And we have a good way to start. Thank you. So I'm going to move on to one more item, and then we'll jump back to the mayor's agenda, just so we can wrap up the resolution piece, okay? Which is my item number 3, discussion and vote, resolution in support of the Safe Cycling Coalition. This resolution is in response to the Biketoga presentation and its request for support for the Safe Cycling Coalition resolution, which is clearly aligned with the city's Complete Streets policy, its Complete Streets plan, and has much citizen support. Now, for the record, I can read part of the resolution. I'd like to waive the reiteration of the coalition's resolution, but if you'd like me to read it into the record, I can, because we do have a very long agenda. So I will read a section of it and then make a motion, okay? But the resolution has been posted for the public. I think it's gotten out into the media, and so I will read a section of it, which is the Be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Saratoga Springs, New York, as follows. Whereas in 2012, the City of Saratoga Springs adopted a general complete street policy stating that making our city a truly walkable and bikeable community will provide significant benefits to our quality of life and economic vitality. The policy further noted, in addition to its health benefits, walking and biking decrease automobile dependence, in turn improving environmental quality, sustainability, roadway conditions, and the economy. The 2012 Complete Streets policy recognized that the way to increase walking and biking in a community is to provide safe opportunities to do so. Now, therefore, be it resolved that in support of Biketoga, the upcoming 10-year anniversary of the 2012 Complete Streets policy, and the Safe Cycling Coalition, the City Council declares its support for their resolution presented by Biketoga and provided by the Saratoga Safe Cycling Coalition, and as uploaded with the agenda. Now, if you would like me to read it, I can. This would be where I would read their resolution. Okay. So, with that, I move that the City Council approve the resolution in support of the Safe Cycling Coalition, again, as included and uploaded with the agenda. This is a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? The matter passes. Thank you very much, Ed, for being here this evening.
Thank you, Ed.
All right. Now we're going to bounce back to the very beginning of the meeting. We are actually on item number 2 on the mayor's agenda.
Good God. Cannabis legislation.
Which is a discussion about cannabis legislation and the establishment of a public comment period. Vince DeLeonardis, our city attorney, is here to briefly discuss that with us because we can continue to discuss this, I think, over the next few meetings. Thank you.
I will be very brief. Lindsay accused me of clearing out the crowd earlier.
Yeah. It's usually my agenda that does that.
Just as a reminder and an update, on March 31st of this year, then Governor Cuomo signed into law the Marijuana Regulation and Taxation Act, which upon its passage made use, possession, and transportation of certain amounts of marijuana lawful. The legislation also created the Cannabis Control Board and the Office of Cannabis Management. We were expecting shortly after the passage of that law that those two regulatory agencies would ultimately be manned in short order. But as we know, there were some state issues, the resignation of the former governor, the appointment of our new governor. But Governor Hochul has just earlier this month appointed individuals to that board. So we're starting to get more information available. But cities have the opportunity to opt out of either one or both of dispensaries and or on-site consumption facilities, but if they're going to opt out, they have to do so by local law on or before December 31st. So we did have a brief update of this, I believe, back in May. I just want to bring that back to council's attention, and we're going to establish an opportunity for the public to provide comment. They will utilize the public.comment at saratoga-springs.org on our city website, and I will work with the Deputy Mayor, Lisa Shields, so that we can also put up on there some links to both the state of New York and specifically those regulatory agencies so they can get information. I believe they have an FAQ or some other information that's coming out, but that will provide for the window of opportunity for the public to comment, and then we'll leave that open. I would propose for 30 days or so, and at the second meeting in October, we'll readdress this issue with you and update you and the public. But
that sounds good, and I would recommend that if anyone on the council wants to have a discussion with Vince about this, I don't know where we all stand on it, but I would recommend, sitting down with Vince and discussing this, because there's a lot of important things going on with this legislation, and as he said, we need to, if we're going to do anything and decide as a council we might want to opt out. I don't know where we're at, from a majority point of view. Those are conversations that we should be having now because there is a deadline looming.
There is, and as I indicated, December 31st is the deadline, but when you factor in that it's by way of a local law, right, and then you have to notice that local law and have public hearings on it, the deadline is right, before that, by that appropriate time frame.
Is that for dispensaries and for like a marijuana farm? Is it both or? or either or?
So cultivation is something different, and that's regulated and licensed by the state. You are able to have home cultivation, and the regulations allow for individuals 21 years and older to have 3 mature plants, 3 immature plants, or households, regardless of the number of individuals 21 over 6, and 6 of those mature and immature. But the regulatory agency hasn't put out the licensing requirements for that yet. So that's not in place. What is in place is the ability to use marijuana. Dispensaries, on-site consumption facilities, that's not really going to come around until late 2022.
Okay, so that's not part of this legislation?
It would be. Dispensaries and on-site consumption facilities. Think of those two by way of correlating it to alcohol as dispensaries being more akin to a liquor store and on-site consumption facilities being more akin to a bar.
I'm sorry, do we need to determine before December 31st if we're going to do, like if we are going to opt out of on-site consumption but opt into dispensaries, correct?
You can
like that would be an option.
Yeah, you can opt out of either or both.
Right, okay.
Or we could just do nothing.
Or do nothing.
Yeah, or if you do nothing, you're in. And keep in mind, too, that there's a local tax to be imposed on this, a 4% local tax. Of that 4%, 3% will come to the city of Saratoga Springs, 1% will go to the county.
I mean, I can't imagine a world in which we opt out, but that's just my opinion.
But this will just give you an opportunity to specifically hear from the public to guide your decisions. And at the second meeting in October, we'll discuss it again.
I think it's great to get public comment on this issue. So, but again, if any member of the council has concerns, because as Vince said, you'd have to introduce an ordinance at this point, and those things take time, please continue to follow up. Okay? Anything else? Okay, we'll move on. Item number 3 is a thank you, Vince. Set public hearing for the Unified Development Ordinance for the final draft. The mayor has asked that the public hearing for the UDO be set for October 5th and the October 19th meetings. Well, you're going to have 10 minutes, 10 minutes. 10 minutes. It's a big, it's a big document. Let's go with 10 minutes.
We could start at 6:45 on the 5th, and then we can go with 6:50 on the 19th.
Well, for now, we're going to go with 6:50 because we're going to have the budget one too, which we'll set later. But okay. Okay. Thank you. All right. So those are set. Okay. Item number 4 is an announcement. Accept CDTC, Saratoga Greenbelt Wilton Connector Trail Technical Assistance Award. The Capital District Transportation Committee, CDTC, and the Capital District Regional Planning Commission, CDRPC, are pleased to inform the city of Saratoga Springs that the Saratoga Greenbelt Wilton Connector Trail project has been approved for funding through the 2021 CDTC CDRPC Community Planning Technical Assistance Program. The city, Saratoga County, and the town of Wilton have been awarded a value of $10,360 in CDTC and CDRPC staff support, matched with local in-kind volunteer services valued at $3,741 for a total project value of $14,101. So that's $14,101. The city match is met by way of city staff time supporting the project. And that is the announcement. Item number 5 is a discussion and vote. Authorization for the mayor to execute discharge satisfaction of mortgage for AgroChem, Inc. Economic Development Loan. AgroChem, Inc. received an economic development loan from the city of Saratoga Springs on October 12, 2016 in the amount of $75,000. The Community Development Department has confirmed that as of August 9, 2021, AgroChem has completed all federal hiring requirements and fully repaid the loan as outlined in the terms of the loan agreement. As the city no longer requires collateral to secure the loan, we are requesting authorization to discharge the mortgage. I move that the City Council authorize the mayor to execute the discharge satisfaction of mortgage for the AgroChem, Inc. Economic Development Loan. This is a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? The matter passes. Item number 6 is a discussion and vote. Accept donation from Advantage Press, Inc. for 9/11 Remembrance Ceremony in the amount of $175. I move that the City Council accept a donation from Advantage Press, Inc. for the printing of the programs for the 2021 9/11 Remembrance Ceremony in the amount of $175. This is a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? The matter passes. Item number 7 is a discussion and vote. Accept donation from Belmonte and Sons Tents and Events, LLC for 9/11 Remembrance Ceremony in the amount of $400. I move that the City Council accept the donation from Belmonte and Son Tents and Events, LLC of chairs for the 2021 9/11 Remembrance Ceremony in the amount of $400. This is a motion. Is there a second? Any discussion? 2021 9/11 Remembrance Ceremony. So if I said that right, I amend the motion to reflect the 2021 9/11 Remembrance Ceremony. Did somebody give a second?
I did.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? The matter passes. Item number 8 is a discussion and vote. Accept donation from Dean's Flowers for 9/11 Remembrance Ceremony in the amount of $120. I move that the City Council accept the donation from Dean's Flowers for a memorial wreath and stand for the 2021 9/11 Remembrance Ceremony in the amount of $120. This is a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? The matter passes. That completes the mayor's agenda. On to the accounts department.
Thank you,
Commissioner Frank.
Commissioner. Thank you. First item is discussion and vote authorization for mayor to sign contract with Amsure Insurance. Amsure has been the city's insurance agent, and we're looking for this contract to run for 3 years. Therefore, I move to authorize the mayor to sign the contract with Amsure Insurance as included with the agenda. That's a motion.
Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? The matter passes.
Thank you, Commissioner. Second item is award of bid, extension of bid fire suppression services to SRI Fire Sprinkler LLC. Upon the recommendation of the Department of Public Works, I move to extend the award of bid for fire suppression services to SRI Fire Sprinkler LLC for an additional year under the same terms, conditions, and prices as found in bid 2019-35. And that's a motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The matter passes.
Thank you, Commissioner. That concludes my agenda.
Thank you, Commissioner. On to the finance agenda. My item number 1, and let me just jump here because my numbers are a mess again, is set public hearing for the 2022 comprehensive budget. The city charter requires 2 public hearings for the city budget, and the first must occur before November 1st. So I'd like to set that for October 19th for 10 minutes. Okay, thank you. We did my item number 2 and we did item number 3. So we're starting to move along this evening. And item number 4 is an update on the 2022 comprehensive budget. The 2022 comprehensive budget will be presented at the next City Council meeting on October 5th, 2021. Pursuant to the city charter, this is the Finance Department's best compilation of departments' requests, which can be supported by 2022 estimated revenue. Finance has been especially responsive to all departments' requests. We acknowledge that this step is daunting and want to thank all of the departments for devoting so much time and effort to it. At least 4 budget workshops will be scheduled to provide each department time to discuss its budget. So please look for emails to follow as we come up on the next City Council meeting with the presentation of the comprehensive budget. Item number 5 is an update on mediation and communication services. Again, true to my word, I have researched, interviewed, and provided suggestions for mediation and communication services. I will continue to provide updates in an effort to improve the city's relationships with various advocacy groups. To date, I have not had a lot of responsiveness from Saratoga Black Lives Matter, but as you know, they were here this evening with public comment and did make it very clear what it would take for us to continue moving forward with mediation services. So I will pick that thread back up tomorrow. I do know that there is something that is coming up, an independent group, I guess. Commissioner Dalton, maybe you're involved with this.
So
with Alexis Figueroa at
I was approached about doing a candidate forum, and then it became a public safety forum, and now, according to Facebook, it's myself and the Saratoga BLM leader. So, I'm open to conversation anytime, anywhere. I'm here for solutions, to create solutions. We have to have dialogue. It's been 16 long months, no dialogue. So, wherever, whenever, I'll have a conversation. We just need to talk.
This is one thing I believe I've seen that they've accepted, at least from the point of social media. To date, it has not been accepted on behalf of the city and what has been recommended.
This is a free version.
Provide that update. Okay.
Thank you. I also think that we just want to continue to be aware that I don't think any one person necessarily speaks for the entire group. And so there have been people contact me who would want to participate in mediation who don't identify as part of Saratoga BLM, but are.
Okay. Yeah. Well, then I think I would suggest we sit down and discuss that so I can understand it more in that context.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Item number 6 is a discussion and vote authorization for the mayor to sign the City of Saratoga Springs agreement for the purchase and sale of streetlights with National Grid. The NYPA program for the purchase of streetlights from National Grid has been before the council and approved numerous times. To recap, the 2018 Smart Street Lighting New York was launched by the New York Power Authority, NYPA, with the aim to replace at least half of the more than 1 million streetlights in the state of New York with energy-efficient and sustainable alternatives. By converting existing streetlight systems to energy-efficient LED, municipalities are able to save taxpayers dollars, provide better lighting to their community, reduce energy use, and subsequently decrease a community's impact on the environment. NYPA provides a full turnkey service to the cities who want to upgrade their street lighting to connected LED. The service is comprised all of the tasks that are needed to develop, install, and commission LED streetlights in the city of Saratoga Springs, including the cities. And I don't know what that says. In addition, there is an ongoing operations and maintenance program that will cost the city less than $50,000 annually. City financing occurs over a 15-year period. During this time, the city will save about $33,000 each year. Once our bond obligation is complete, the city will save over $300,000 every year for each year thereafter. This agenda item, as well as my item number 7, are the next steps in this process. And Tina Carton is here if anybody has any questions for her. I move that the City Council authorize the mayor to sign the City of Saratoga Springs agreement for the purchase and sale of streetlights with National Grid as included with the agenda. This is a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? The matter passes. Item number 7 is a discussion and vote authorization for the mayor to sign the City of Saratoga Springs Streetlight Attachment License Agreement with National Grid. This document was described with my previous item, and I will move directly to the motion. I move that the City Council authorize the mayor to sign the City of Saratoga Springs Streetlight Attachment License Agreement with National Grid as included with the agenda. This is a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? The matter passes. Tina, thank you for being here at this late hour, but I'm very pleased that both of these agenda items have passed. Item number 8 is a discussion and vote authorization for the mayor to sign agreement with Saratoga Housing Authority and ESD, Empire State Development, and Nice Tech. I think it's good you're still here, Tina. Smart Cities grant for LED streetlights, Wi-Fi analytics, and other. This agreement allows the city to work with its purchasing department to pay invoices associated with and approved by Empire State Development and Nice Tech Smart Cities grant pilot program. I move that the City Council authorize the mayor to sign agreement with Saratoga Housing Authority regarding the Empire State Development Nice Tech Smart Cities grant for LED streetlights, Wi-Fi analytics, and other, as included with the agenda. This is a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? The matter passes. And then my remaining items are budget amendments and transfers. Item number 9 is a discussion and vote budget amendments benefits, lines 1 through 6, amendments to the general water and sewer funds to align city dental program employee reimbursements with employee premiums resulting from newly enrolled employees. Amounts are $84, $2,739.82, and $1,548.85, respectively. I move that the City Council approve budget amendments benefits as included with the agenda. This is a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? The matter passes. Item number 10 is a discussion and vote. Budget transfers benefits, lines 1 through 9, transfer within the general water and sewer fund budgets to cover employee opt-out payments resulting from recent changes in the health insurance census. Amounts are $1,850, $2,750.36, $209.75, $250.12, respectively. I move that the City Council approve budget transfers benefits as included with the agenda. This is a motion. Is there a second? Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? The matter passes. Item number 11, discussion and vote budget transfers payroll, lines 1 through 3, from finance part-time clerk appropriation to full-time finance coordinator to reallocate funds in the amounts of $14,043. I move that the City Council approve budget transfers payroll as included with the agenda. This is a motion. Is there a second? All those in favor, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? The matter passes. My item number 12 was already completed. That was the contingency transfer for the RISE Homeless Court Program. So I believe that completes my agenda, and we are on to Public Works. Commissioner Scirocco.
Thank you.
Well done.
The first item on my agenda is discussion and vote. This is authorization for the mayor to sign a contract with SRI Fire Sprinkler LLC for fire suppression services. This contract with SRI is for inspections, maintenance, and repairs of the fire sprinkler systems for the following city buildings: City Hall, Canfield Casino, Indoor Rec Center, Weibel and Vernon Ice Rink, Water Treatment Plant, and the Senior Center. Therefore, I move for the mayor to sign a contract with SRI Fire Sprinkler for fire suppression services in the amount not to exceed unit bid price per proposal, and I put that in the form of a motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? The matter passes.
Second item on my agenda is discussion and vote, authorization for the mayor to sign a contract with Morton Salt Incorporated for the furnishing and delivery of rock salt. This contract with Morton Salt is a piggyback off Saratoga County contract for rock salt. Therefore, I move for the authorization for the mayor to sign a contract with Morton Salt Incorporated for rock salt in the amount not to exceed unit bid price per proposal, and I put that in the form of a motion.
Is there a second? I'll second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? The matter passes.
Third item on my agenda is discussion and vote. Authorization for the mayor to sign an agreement with the State of New York Unified Court System. This is an annual renewal agreement between the city and the State of New York Unified Court System. The renewal period is from April 1st, 2021 through March 31st, 2022. The proposed budget is $37,987. This budget is based on reimbursement for services rendered, court cleaning, minor repairs, and maintenance by the DPW staff. Therefore, I move for the mayor to sign the renewal agreement with the New York State Unified Court System for the period of April 1st, 2021 to March 31st, 2022 in the amount of $37,987. And I put that in the form of a motion.
Is there a second? Second. Who seconded?
I think we all did.
Oh, everybody?
Yeah,
Everybody seconded?
You choose.
Have whoever you want. Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? The matter passes.
Fourth item on my agenda is a discussion and vote, authorization to pay invoice number 113481 to ChargePoint in the amount of $4,572.11. In 2017, the City Council accepted grant funds to install the EV charging stations on city property. The acquisition and installation of the EV chargers was handled by the Planning Department staff with approval from DPW. One of the chargers was installed in the old Woodlawn Avenue garage and currently needs to have the cloud and maintenance services renewed as the original agreement has expired. This invoice is coming to council because ChargePoint, the manufacturer of EV charging station, will not sign a vendor services agreement with the city because they operate under a master services and subscription agreement that was previously signed by the planning department staff. To reinstate the services provided by ChargePoint for cloud and maintenance services so that the EV charging station at the old Woodlawn garage can be functional for the public, this invoice needs city council approval for payment. Therefore, I move for approval to pay invoice number 113481 to ChargePoint in the amount of $4,572.11. And I put that in the form of a motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? The matter passes.
Next item on my agenda is just an announcement again for the Household Hazardous Waste Day. The Department of Public Works is holding a free household hazardous waste collection day, and it will occur on Saturday, October 16th, 2021, from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. at the Weibel Avenue Ice Rink. That's 30 Weibel Avenue in Saratoga Springs. The event is offered in partnership with the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation and is only open to residents of Saratoga Springs. This event provides residents the opportunity to safely dispose of a variety of materials such as poisons, pesticides, solvents, oil-based paints, household batteries, aerosol cans, fluorescent light bulbs, and more. A full list of acceptable and non-acceptable materials can be found on the city's website. This event is well attended, a biannual event. Pre-registration and proof of residency is required. Residents looking to participate can sign up on the city website, www.saratogasprings.org. A list of acceptable items and registration forms are also available at City Hall and the transfer station. Again, residents must sign up by October 1st, 2021, due to the high expected turnout of this event. Applications received after this deadline date will be accommodated on a space available basis only. For more for more information or assistance registering, contact Carrie at 518-587-3550, extension 2623. And please note, no Lectex paint will be accepted this year. Additional information on acceptable materials can be found on the city's website under latest news for Household Hazardous Waste Collection Day. Household Hazardous Waste Collection Day has been well received by city residents as an opportunity for disposal of these materials in an environmentally friendly way. And I encourage all to register and participate this year. And again, with latex paint, I guess you could take some kitty litter or that quick dry material you can buy and just put it in the can and it'll dry up, or just leave it out and you can put it right in your garbage. So that's why they won't take it. So
Interesting.
okay, I think the final, I believe the final item on my agenda is just, again, an announcement for the Fall Tire Recycling Program. Saratoga County Soil and Water Conservation District is holding a tire recycling event on October 19th, 2021 from 4 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. This is behind Malta Town Court, 2538 State Highway 9 in Malta. The program is open to all Saratoga County residents. Registration and proof of residency is required. Please register by Wednesday, October 13th. And again, additional information along with the registration form can be found on the city's website at www.saratoga-springs.org. And no questions. That concludes my agenda.
Thank you, Commissioner. And we're on to Public Safety Department. Commissioner Dalton.
Thank you, Commissioner. The first item on my agenda is discussion and vote, amend Chapter 225, Article 9, Schedule subsection 225-94, Schedule 29, alternate side of the street parking. This is to make Beekman Street from Church Street to West Circular Street alternate side of the street parking per request and a petition from the neighbors. I make a motion to amend Chapter 225, Article 9, Schedule subsection 225-94, Schedule 29, alternate side of the street parking. This is a motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? I do have some discussion. That is a tight area, so you did get a lot of neighbor feedback there.
Did. And
I mean, you try to go to a restaurant on Beekman Street and you can't find a place to park sometimes. I guess that's why we need to ride our bicycles.
So, yes,
Yeah.
we got it was a very engaged process with the neighborhood. They did a petition and came to traffic. I think Public Works also was okay with it.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask. There was a lot of community involvement.
No, I know.
Then. Yeah, okay.
I know. It's a tricky area over there in general, I know, for parking.
It really is. And it's dark. It can be very dark there, too, at night. So, if you're pushed onto the side streets to park, because now you're going to have more alternate street parking.
If there is a seriously negative effect to the neighborhood, hopefully, the neighbors will let us know and we can adjust and pivot.
That's true.
It's nothing set in stone.
All right, thank you. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? The matter passes.
Thank you. The second item on my agenda is discussion and vote. Accept a donation from the mounted unit. This is a donation from Holly Grandy for a mounted unit in the amount of $400. Wanted to thank Holly for her generous donation and make a motion to accept this donation in the amount of $400. This is a motion.
For a second? I'll second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? The matter passes.
I already did my last item, and so that concludes my agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. On to Supervisor Veach.
Good evening. Thank you, Commissioner. I have a few items here for my agenda for tonight. First item is just a quick update and recap from the New York State Association of Counties Conference. It was hosted last week in Syracuse, New York, September 13th through the 15th. I serve as the Vice Chairman of the New York State Association of Counties Public Safety Committee. We took up several resolutions that we considered and approved, and were also approved by the New York State Association of Counties Board. From public safety, our three resolutions were first asking the state to amend the bail and discovery reform laws. Second was opposing qualified immunity reform. And what qualified immunity is that when you are in the service of the faithful discharge of your duty, there is a immunity that you have from being sued for any issues that may occur while you're doing that. So it falls mainly within the public safety realm with police and fire services, but actually any official has qualified immunity in the discharge of their duties, including elected officials. So we did talk a little bit about potentially having this be more than just public safety handling it at the state level, but it did go through that committee and was approved by the board. And the last item we had was to enact civil service reform for public safety professionals. We are finding in lots of areas actually of civil service that the civil service tests and the way that process goes is becoming difficult for public safety to recruit candidates that are qualified for public safety positions, both in the police, corrections, and EMS area. But it's not just public safety in this one as well. It's a lot of different areas of government service where the civil service laws haven't really kept up with the times. Taking the tests, some people aren't really great at taking tests.
You just initiated this conversation with civil service here as well.
Yeah,
so.
they may be great employees or potential employees, but they don't have the ability to make it through the civil service process. So from the public safety perspective at the state level, we're trying to push the state to change those laws so we can have more qualified candidates. After that, they had several seminars that I attended. The first was lessons learned from the COVID-19 pandemic. It's interesting to see how counties, other than ourselves, handled the COVID-19 pandemic, and also very many lessons learned for ourselves as to how we could have done that better from last year. Transforming New York's recycling system, a review of the 2021 Police Reform and Community Action and Engagement, which essentially was a review of the state's community police reform task force type activities from all around the state, and what they were seeing as recurring themes. I know one of the things that Saratoga County is looking to do is implement the body cam system for our sheriff's deputies. They found that was a recurring theme throughout the entire state, actually, as one of the major issues that police reform needs to have. And as Mr. Golub mentioned earlier, now people are in favor of it. In 2015, we tried to do body cameras in the county, and it didn't make it. So now it's part of our reform program. EMS and crisis for challenges for rural communities, and a interesting seminar on cryptocurrency and blockchain. It was interesting to see how digital currency will affect local government going forward. So don't ask me to explain what blockchain is, because we'd be here way longer than we already have been. We don't need another presentation tonight. So I appreciate the opportunity to represent the city and county at the state level for NYSAC, and I'm happy to serve in that capacity. Second on my agenda is quick 2022 budget update from the county. We are still in the development stage of our budget, so our departments are still submitting and refining their preliminary budgets. As a member of the Law and Finance Committee and the chair of the Buildings and Grounds Committee, I've been to several of these meetings. It's the first year that we've been able to participate. Well, I shouldn't say be able to, but first year that we're participating serving as elected officials and supervisors within that process. It's been an amazing and welcome change, having the ability to directly interact with our department heads and to hear their justifications for funding within the budget. Per our local law, the budget is required to be issued, the preliminary budget is required to be issued by October 15th, so we're still on our timetable to have that done at that time. And the Long Range Capital Committee is meeting on September 30th. This is also a brand new policy at the county with a newly constituted committee, and for the first time having a non-restricted list of capital requests. So we're just going to get everything that was presented to us as a committee, and we're going to make the decisions as to what we move forward with for next year in the budget. Third on my agenda is just a quick proposal for the Saratoga County bike route system. We've actually had a group of several folks meet informally, including Commissioner of Finance. I think Commissioner of Public Safety has been to a couple of them, both supervisors, Commissioner of Public Works from the county, Planning Department from the county, folks from the Mayor's office. Tina Carton has been at a few of these meetings. And we've been talking a lot about bike route system in the county, not necessarily directly in the city. And so we've come up with a proposal to present to the county for bike routes that would be signed bicycle routes on county roads that would connect various communities and various areas of the county. There will be at least one road in every single community that's a designated bike route, and a few local roads as well that we're going to hopefully get some of the towns to sign off on that make connections between the county roads. So I've talked to the chairman of our Trails and Open Space Committee, and hopefully we'll have that on the agenda for next month for us to discuss and hopefully approve at the county. Finally, it's been like a 2-year process getting this going, so hopefully they'll have it done this year.
Was that a draft map then that I saw the other day?
Yeah, it's
because it was
essentially
very impressive.
Yeah,
So-
it's essentially the proposal,
Okay.
and we'll see if they adopt it or not. The question would be whether any of the local towns on those roads will want to do that with us. I hope they will. Those supervisors will be voting on the plan, so hopefully they will do it. But yeah, it's been quite a interesting. I don't know how many miles it is, and DPW can figure that out for us at the county. They'll tell us, but we'll try to work on that and get it done next month. Fourth is just an announcement on the 2021-2022 Home Heating Assistance or HEAT program. It starts on October 1st, 2021 and runs through March 15th, 2022. There are two types of grants you can get for home heating assistance. The first is regular and the second is an emergency grant. Home heating assistance is to assist low-income households with home heating costs. So if you fall within a certain income level, you're eligible for home heating assistance. And basically there will be a hard copy. You could mail an application or you could do an online application, and they're available through the Department of Social Services at Saratoga County, and you can reach them through our county website to download an application if you want to do it old school, I guess, or you can do an online application. So that happens every single year, and I do announce that usually at the council meeting to let people know that they can take advantage of that grant if they qualify. 5 is the Workforce Development Local Area Plan. So every 4 years, the Workforce Development Local Area Plan is approved, and it's done in cooperation with the career centers in Saratoga County, Washington, and Warren County. Our career center covers all 3 areas. And every 4 years, the approval of the program switches between counties. So 4 years ago, I don't know if it was Warren or Washington, but they approved it. This year, we approve it. So we actually did that today at our county meeting. It sets up the plan and the funding for the Career Center. And the Workforce Development in our Career Center is a department in Saratoga County. They provide free services for people who need assistance with things like job placement, resumes, computer skills, and other needs for anybody who is seeking assistance. They also do have leads on potential jobs that you could get if you're seeking employment. So if you are currently unemployed, you could use our Workforce Development Center to develop a skill to potentially get a job that you might be seeking. And lastly, we did vote today on department consolidations. We did 3 of those. Some of this was discussed at our last meeting. First was we moved the county historian from the Board of Supervisors department to the county clerk. As the historian keeps historical records and the county clerk has many, many historical records, we felt it was more appropriate to move that department to the county clerk's department rather than have it under the Board of Supervisors, which doesn't seem to really fit because we don't do a lot of historical record keeping at the Board of Supervisors. We do keep local laws, but that's pretty much it. And with our records management program, which we're starting to do this year, the county clerk fits very well with the historian in terms of that program. The Youth Bureau is going to be dissolved and merged into the Public Health Department and the Aging Department. Public Health will handle the early intervention aspects of the Youth Bureau, and other aspects of the Youth Bureau will be handled by the Aging Department. Now, there'll still be youth programs, even though they're under the Aging Department, but we felt the consolidation, or actually the splitting up of the functions of the Youth Bureau made better efficiency sense at the county. The Youth Advisory Board will still exist. None of that will change, but the department as it stands will be merged into a couple other departments. And the last one is the Office of Emergency Service will be merged under the Sheriff's Department and renamed the Office of Emergency Management. This will allow the Office of Emergency Services to have more resources when problems occur, and they'll be able to use the Sheriff's Department more readily as it will be under the Sheriff's Department for any personnel shortages or needs that the Office of Emergency Management may have in responding to natural disasters or other issues. This was not unanimous at the Board of Supervisors today. My colleague, Supervisor Gasta, did not vote for this resolution. I'll let her handle it on her future agenda if she wishes to bring it up. But I did want to make that point that it was not a unanimous vote at the county to do this today. I did vote in favor of it. And with that, that is it for my agenda. And we're just under the 10 o'clock wire, so thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor. And Supervisor Gaston is not here this evening. I would just like to take a moment, I should have tried to add this to my agenda, that Saratoga Peace Week is September 21 through September 27. I left some flyers over there if anybody's looking for more information about it or anybody in the public. I guess you could contact my office. My deputy is very involved with this, Deputy Ladd, so we can make sure people have more information about it if they want. If there are no other matters,
I just had one
Go
thing,
ahead.
Commissioner. I forgot to say it during my agenda. Just a sad announcement. About 2 weeks ago, Bev Valentine passed away. And even though I electronically signed the death certificates, I didn't have that information in front of me last meeting. And she was a wonderful lady. I know she's Skippy's neighbor. Everybody ever met? She was a spark plug. She was her husband Ed was 18 years as commissioner of accounts. So, and they're a wonderful family. And we do a lot of work with Mike Valentine down at the county. So I just wanted to give the condolences.
Yes, thank you.
Also.
Condolences absolutely to the family. I'm sure we all express them. Thank you, Commissioner. So if there are no other matters, we are adjourned. Thank you, Council.
Public Affairs programming on Look TV is underwritten by the generous support of Pinnell's Restaurant, classic Italian-American food since 1922, and Stored Tech, technology solutions for computers, networks, and phone. Stored Tech, your technology, our passion.
1922, Babe Ruth debuts with the Yankees. WGY signs on air. Exterminator wins the Saratoga Cup, and Pinnell's Restaurant opens its doors for the very first time. For 5 generations, Pinnell's has been preparing delicious Italian food, served in a comfortable, home-like setting where everyone is welcome. 90 years of authentic Italian recipes, 90 years of the freshest ingredients, and 90 years of the finest classic Italian dishes, all made daily by hand. Pinnell's Italian Restaurant, a Saratoga dining tradition since 1922.
Most cybersecurity firms deal only with prevention, the systems that block hackers and viruses. Stored Tech knows the root cause is actually good people doing bad things. So we offer a security training program which includes certifying all participants to show they understand the basics.
Technology solutions for computers, networks, and phones. Stored Tech, your technology, our passion.